Chapter 1190. Deep into the day, Luoya had something to say to him at night. But in the end she forcefully endured it. Looking back at the road ahead, Luoya laughed self-mockingly. The first half of her life was too ironic. She was born in a two-star family and had favorable conditions, but she only cared about having fun. In the past few years she had followed the Dry Cliff Bandits everywhere to have fun. She had been a B-rank spirit chi professional for almost a year, and her grandfather had said that he would help her promote the mist anti-poison moth to platinum. She had rejected it because she felt that it would delay her fun. She was too unbearable. She was so unbearable that she didn't dare to talk to him after understanding how outstanding he was. Looking at the vast night sky, Luoya, who had always had a playful attitude, was sure that there was someone living in her heart. All her flirtatious thoughts were completely suppressed by this person. Apart from having an illustrious status, he had a creation breed fae at a young age. Luoya hadn't even comprehended a single willpower rune. No matter how hard she worked, she wouldn't be able to catch up to that person in her heart. But at the moment when she denied herself, Roha's heart gave birth to a stubborn determination. Luoya took a deep breath and clenched her fists. Even if I can't catch up to that person's footsteps, I can at least get closer to him through hard work. At the very least, I can have the qualifications to chase after his back. This thought gave Luoya an unprecedented drive. When Luoya's drive reached the peak, she suddenly entered a state of epiphany. Sensing the additional willpower rune in her mind, Luoya took a deep look at Lin Yuan's tent. When she looked at Lin Yuan's tent, she found that the silver-armored youth was frowning and looking at her with vigilance. His vigilant gaze was as though he was guarding against a thief. His gaze made Luoya rather speechless. What am I doing? What does that look mean? He's looking at me as though I'm an LSP. Can a weak woman like me knock you out and enter the tent to do something to Lin Yuan? The cobwebs in the sky have yet to be removed. Luoya felt that if she really wanted to do something and put it into practice, the silver-armored youth would definitely let the cobwebs cover the sky and stick her to it. He hung himself together with those ugly crypt creatures on the spider web. Thinking of this scene, Roha shivered. Luoya took out a piece of paper and solemnly wrote her phone number on it. Then she strode to Lu Jie's side. He passed the paper to Lu Jie and said, I made an appointment with Lin Yuan to host him in Nanmu City. If Lin Yuan arrives at Nanmu City, you can ask him to call me. After saying that, Luoya gazed at Lin Yuan's sleeping tent with nostalgia. Then thinking of the determination in her heart, Roha turned around and climbed on the back of the mist anti-poison moth. The fog anti-poison moth flapped its wings and flew in the direction of the Divine Wood Federation. Apart from Lu Jie, no one else was alerted. However, this didn't mean that the members of the Qingyi caravan could have a good night's sleep. On the contrary, after the bonfire feast was over, the liveliness and joy died down. The members of the Sincere E-Merchant group recalled that the Pinnacle Class 2 underground dimensional rift that had suddenly opened up had yet to be resolved. It was just that every underground life form that came out of the Pinnacle Class 2 underground dimensional rift would be immediately caught by the spiderweb. The crypt creatures that were stuck on the spider web would be neatly arranged by some indistinct little things on the spider web. It could be said that if they did not sleep in the tent, once they opened their eyes, they would be able to see the crypt creatures that were 50 meters in the sky. They could see the miserable scene of the crypt creatures struggling desperately on the spider web. This impact made the members of the Sincere E-Merchant group close their eyes, afraid that the crypt creatures that were stuck on the spider web would fall down. If a crypt creature really fell down, even if the silver-armored man stationed in front of the tent acted righteously, it was very likely that they would lose their lives if they did not act in time. After all, there was still a Class 4 gnome and a Class 4 obsidian gargoyle hanging on the spider web. It was different from most of the members of the Sincere E-Merchant group. Mr. Feng and Feng Jiaji had not slept the entire night because they were excited and looking forward to it. When Mr. Feng and Feng Jiaji collected the Sincere E-Merchant group's walnuts, they did not say that the walnuts were for Lin Yuan's sake. They did not say that the walnuts were for Lin Yuan to help replace the supplies and give the Sincere E-Merchant group an initial capital. Mr. Feng and Feng Jiaji did not know how much capital Lin Yuan would provide for the Sincere E-Merchant group. If they continued to speak before the dust settled, it was likely that the merchant group's members would have high expectations. If the expectations were not met, the merchant group members would sink into disappointment. Mr. Feng, who had led a 100-member team for many years, understood that excessive expectations would definitely not lead to desire and greed. Once the seeds of desire and greed appeared, they would quickly gnaw at a kind person's heart. While excited and looking forward to it, Mr. Feng knew that he would not have an easy time. On the one hand, he had to use the capital that Lin Yuan would provide to allow the merchant group to develop rapidly and build up its reputation. On the other hand, he had to guide the hearts of the old fellows in the merchant group so that they would not be blinded by desire and greed. On the next morning, Lin Yuan woke up in the tent. Before sleeping, Lin Yuan sent Genius back into the spirit lock spatial zone. It was not that Lin Yuan did not want to hug Genius to sleep, but Genius insisted on teaching a few hundred questions beast. Afterward, it went to study and concoct the spirit fluid to nurture the soldier grain radish. Genius had been nestled in Lin Yuan's embrace since the afternoon and had been napping a lot. Since Genius did not lack sleep, Lin Yuan simply let it be. After taking out a few hoses from the amber button-shaped face storage box, Lin Yuan washed his face and brushed his teeth before walking out of the tent. As soon as he walked out of the tent, he saw Lu Jie holding a piece of paper. Upon seeing Lin Yuan, Lu Jie handed the piece of paper to him and said, "Lin Yuan Roya has left. Lin Yuan Roya has left. This is her contact information. Roya said to call her if we go to Nanmu City." Upon seeing Lu Jie's piece of paper, Lin Yuan raised his brows. He had to go to Nanmu City. He still wanted to obtain the spirit plant, the walnut tree, through Roya. However, going to Nanmu City was a matter of a few days later. Tomorrow morning, Lin Yuan would return to the Radiance Federation to participate in the Celestial Council with Wen Yu. He did not know if the Iron Hammer Federation's Trey had led the tribe through a calamity after he had rapidly become a Class 1 creation master. He also did not know if the former Dark Federation's Dark Envoy, Zoel, who was currently stranded in the Divine Wood Federation, would agree to join the Celestial Council after a week of consideration. In fact, Lin Yuan already had a conclusion in his heart as to whether Zoel would join the Celestial Council. ABC. Chapter 1191. Lin Yuan felt that as long as Su Yiren was not stupid, she would not give up this chance to live. Even if this chance to live would cause her to lose her freedom. After all, it was much more important for those who wanted revenge to live on and hold on to hope than to have freedom. As for the resources for the Sincere Righteous Trade Association, Lin Yuan had already prepared them before he went to bed last night. Mr. Feng collected all the Honest Faith Trade Association's object storing walnuts and handed a total of 12 silver walnuts to Lin Yuan. There were a total of 57 bronze walnuts. The total area of these walnuts was less than 2,000 square meters. If Lin Yuan wanted the Sincere Righteous Trade Association to develop quickly, the price of the resources could not be too low. Of course, it was not appropriate to give the Sincere Righteous Trade Association too expensive. A small trade association with too expensive resources could easily get into trouble. Previously, the Dry Cliff Bandits had targeted the Sincere Righteous Trade Association. Who knew if other bandits would target the Sincere Righteous Trade Association in the future? Finally, Lin Yuan placed a large number of resources produced from Class 2-dimensional rifts into these walnuts. These resources were produced from Class 2-dimensional rifts in every dimensional rift. It was fine even if the Divine Wood Federation did not open underground dimensional rifts or the Iron Hammer Federation did not open swamp dimensional rifts. The Sincere Righteous Trade Association traveled between the Iron Hammer and Divine Wood Federations, so it was not impossible to obtain these resources. The resources that Lin Yuan provided were all top-notch for the Sincere Righteous Trade Association. They were also the resources that the Sincere Righteous Trade Association could control to the greatest extent. Everything had to be done slowly. He believed that the Sincere Righteous Trade Association would soon be able to expand its scale with this capital injection. After Lin Yuan handed these walnuts to Mr. Feng, Mr. Feng's eyes nearly fell out of their sockets when he examined them. It could be said that the Sincere Righteous Trade Association did not have the qualifications to obtain any of the resources in these walnuts. It would be a joyous occasion for the Sincere Righteous Trade Association if they could occasionally obtain one of these resources. When Mr. Feng held the walnuts filled with resources, his hand could not help but tremble. After some calculations, these walnuts were worth at least 8 million deep Brahmin coins. How much did the Sincere Righteous Trade Association originally have? With this capital, it was not a dream for the Sincere Righteous Trade Association to develop. After Mr. Feng expressed his gratitude to Lin Yuan, he immediately summoned all the members of the Sincere Caravan. He told everyone about Lin Yuan pouring resources into the Sincere Caravan without concealing anything. When the members of the Qingyi Caravan heard the sudden good news, they were overjoyed. Mr. Feng looked at the surprised members of the Sincere Caravan before looking at Lin Yuan. Originally, our Qingyi Caravan only had 100,000 deep Brahmin coins. And this is the price of all our heads and the lives of our family members. Lin Yuan's capital injection for our sincere e-caravan has reached at least 80 times the original price of our goods. According to the calculation of shares, Lin Yuan has more than 98% of the sincere e-caravan shares. Now, I suggest that Lin Yuan be our sincere caravan's captain. Mr. Feng's words made Lin Yuan raise his brows. After a short period of silence, most people responded to Mr. Feng's suggestion. However, he did not want to be the captain of the sincere e-caravan. The resources that Lin Yuan had poured into the sincere e-caravan seemed to be a lot in their eyes. Almost all of them were expensive items that one wouldn't dare to dream of normally. However, if one were to really calculate it, these resources were not as valuable as a source-type item. If he did not want to keep the pinnacle class two-dimensional rift in front of him, he would have explored it with Lu Jia. He took out 2 source-type items from the dimensional hub and gathered the materials that were easy to collect. According to the original standards, the resources obtained were enough to invest in the Qingyi caravan for another 7 or 8 times. In other words, the Spirit Lock spatial zone would produce 1 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearl every 20 breaths. A Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearl was enough to cause a raging wave in a place like the Agon continent that didn't have any Class 5 creation masters. This caused the experts of the 3 great federations to fight over it. He could imagine a continent without Class 5 creation masters. How much did the experts on the continent desire such resources that could only be nurtured by pinnacle Class 4 creation masters with extreme luck? Therefore, the investment provided to the sincere e-caravan was just a drop in the bucket for him. The sincere e-caravan's members didn't know that they could talk to Lin Yuan for a while. In terms of value, the time spent on Lin Yuan was already more valuable than the resources in the object storage walnut. After Mr. Feng made his proposal, he had been secretly observing Lin Yuan's expression. Seeing that Lin Yuan didn't agree, Mr. Feng knew he had done the wrong thing. However, Lin Yuan had provided so much investment to the sincere e-caravan, and the caravan couldn't repay him at all. Mr. Feng didn't have the face to say that he would sell the resources in the object storage walnut and give the money to Lin Yuan. If Lin Yuan wanted to transfer the resources, he didn't need to go through the sincere e-caravan. If Lin Yuan took these resources to the Deep Frost Chamber of Commerce, he would immediately be treated as a VIP by the sincere e-caravan. The only thing he could do now was to lead the entire caravan to express their loyalty to Lin Yuan. On one hand, it was a response to Lin Yuan's investment. On the other hand, Lin Yuan had become the captain of the sincere e-caravan and was completely integrated into the caravan. In the future, Lin Yuan would definitely help the sincere e-caravan develop again. It could be said that this was a good opportunity for the sincere e-caravan. The more excited the sincere e-caravan's members were, the more embarrassed Mr. Feng felt. At that moment, the youth's clear voice gave Mr. Feng a ladder. First of all, thank you for your support. My original intention was to go out and train. I can't follow the caravan everywhere. Therefore, it isn't suitable for me to be the captain. In addition, I will provide the sincere e-caravan with the capital because I see its potential. A caravan's capital can be accumulated through a few fortuitous encounters. However, the hearts of the people gathered by the caravan can't be exchanged for no matter how much capital you have. Lin Yuan's words made everyone in the sincere e-caravan, including Mr. Feng, feel warm. Mr. Feng asked Lin Yuan, "In that case, I will still be worried about the captain. In that case, I will still be worried about the captain of the sincere e-caravan. I wonder if you can be the honorary captain of the sincere e-caravan? In the future, the sincere e-caravan's earned resources will be refunded to you at 98% of the shares." ABC. Chapter 1193. Lin Yuan looked at the green-skinned dwarf in front of him, who was shivering but whose eyes were darting around. He raised his brows slightly and said to his shadow, "Don't worry." He raised his brows slightly and said to his shadow, "Void Shadow Demon, help this gnome set the rules." When the Class 4 gnome saw Lin Yuan walking toward it, it felt as though it had seen a devil. The Class 4 gnome knew that the expert that had used a shocking force to stick it on the spiderweb was the servant of this person in front of it. In the understanding of dimensional life forms, it was often the weak who submitted to the strong. Lin Yuan might not have revealed his strength, but in the eyes of the Class 4 gnome, he was already the most powerful existence. At the same time, there was another question in the rank 4 Earth essence. There were so many crypt creatures. There were so many gnome life forms, and it could be said that it was the smallest and most inconspicuous existence. Furthermore, it had tried its best to restrain its aura on the spiderweb. Why would it be singled out? If it had to be singled out, it should have been that big blockhead, the obsidian gargoyle, who had been struggling. That blockhead was obviously the most eye-catching. When the Void Shadow Demon heard Lin Yuan's instructions, it immediately crawled out of Lin Yuan's shadow. When the Void Shadow Demon released its aura at the Class 4 gnome, the eyes of the Class 4 gnome that was bound by the spiderweb rolled back. It was so frightened that it fainted. Although the princess had performed a Source-type baptism on dimensional life forms, the Source-type life forms would feel grateful because of the transformation of their life forms. However, this situation was usually only for life forms like the lizard Teng that possessed intelligence but had relatively simple intelligence. Four-dimensional life forms like the gnome, which was cunning and greedy, it was extremely cautious. If Lin Yuan transformed it into an apostle, he would obtain the loyalty of the Class 4 gnome. In the end, he might obtain a selfish, gluttonous, and lazy master. Looking at the unconscious green-skinned dwarf, Lin Yuan didn't have the slightest bit of pity. He immediately instructed the Void Shadow Demon. "Void Shadow Demon, wake him up." The Void Shadow Demon replied in a hoarse voice. "Lord Ruler, don't worry. Give me 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, this gnome won't dare to go west if you order it to go east. As long as it can work, it will never think of resting." While speaking, the Void Shadow Demon's body scattered and turned into a shadow that fused into the Class 4 gnome's shadow. 10 minutes later, the Void Shadow Devil stood in front of Lin Yuan again. The drooling goblin looked at Lin Yuan with eyes that looked as though it was looking at a god. When he recalled the Void Shadow Demon's ability, he couldn't help but shiver. Not to mention this level 4 gnome. He reckoned that it was a heartless mackerel from an alien insect dimensional rift. It was a cruel, mindless alien insect that was born purely to kill and eat. After experiencing what the Void Shadow Fiend had just done, he would also become an obedient child. Lin Yuan felt that his Void Shadow Fiend could be conferred the title of Dimensional Lifeform Ambassador. It was used for friendly communication with other dimensional creatures. Looking at the goblin's submissive eyes, Lin Yuan waved his hand and summoned Genius. This Class 4 gnome was equivalent to a Platinum Fey, and Genius' strength was now at Diamond. Even if this level 4 gnome resisted fiercely after Genius used its exclusive skill Interconnection Tail, the gnome wouldn't be able to kill it. It wouldn't do much harm to intelligence. Lin Yuan asked Genius to create an interconnection tail between himself, Lu Jie the Void Shadow Devil, and the gnome. After Genius transformed into the Internet Beast, Lin Yuan rarely allowed Genius to use its interconnection tail to link multiple targets at once. Now that Genius had 8 tails, the interconnection tail could link 8 targets at the same time. On the one hand, Lin Yuan wanted to make use of this opportunity to let everyone master the underground world's language. On the other hand, he wanted to see the inner heart of this Class 4 gnome and its experience in the underground world. He wanted to see if this Class 4 gnome was as submissive as it appeared to be under the Void Shadow Devil's guidance. When it heard Lin Yuan's instructions, Genius' ocean-like spiritual energy suddenly fluctuated. The massive spiritual energy fluctuation made one feel as though they were surrounded by a vast ocean. However, Genius' spiritual energy didn't have an invasive nature. If Genius didn't use its spiritual energy to intentionally target a certain target, the target would feel extremely comfortable. Under the influence of Genius' mental power, any target would enter an extremely comfortable and calm state. The 8 tails behind Genius, which were more than twice the size of its body, blossomed like flower petals. 4 of the tails separated from Genius' body and turned into 4 glass-like ribbons of light in the air. The 4 ribbons of light intertwined like butterflies and connected Lin Yuan, Lu Jie the Void Shadow Devil, and Genius with the Class 4 gnome. The instant the interconnection tail was completed, Lin Yuan saw the experience of the Class 4 gnome from when it had consciousness until now. At that moment, Genius was rapidly learning the underground world's language based on the knowledge that the Class 4 gnome possessed. Lin Yuan was looking at the Class 4 gnome's experience. After a round of investigation, Lin Yuan finally knew why this gnome's bloodline had mutated into an or vein when it was only Class 4. The more Lin Yuan looked at the Class 4 gnome's experience, the more he lamented. This Class 4 gnome was the child of destiny. From the moment it had consciousness, it had appeared in a larger vein and constantly devoured the ores in the ore vein to increase its strength. It had even devoured the ore core of the ore vein. The ore core was the purest mineral in the ore vein's core, and it possessed purer energy than the other minerals in the ore vein. At the same time, it was extremely beneficial to dimensional lifeforms like the gnome. It wasn't over after devouring the ore veins or core. After devouring the ore veins or core, the Class 4 gnome had been chased by other powerful dimensional lifeforms. In the process of being chased by other dimensional lifeforms, the Class 4 gnome had fallen into a mountain stream, an underground river, and an unknown ore vein. However, after encountering a life-threatening danger, this dying gnome would always discover a new hidden or vein that had yet to be discovered by other underground life forms. This Class 4 gnome's experience was always accompanied by fortuitous encounters. Lin Yuan felt that if he had to give this gnome a name, it would be most suitable to call it Xiao Yan. For some unknown reason, Lin Yuan felt that this gnome's experience was somewhat similar to Su Chu's. However, compared to this Class 4 gnome, Su Chu's journey was much more bumpy. This Class 4 gnome's body still had a large amount of ore-core energy. Previously in the ore vein, the Class 4 gnome had been in a hurry to devour the ores in the ore vein and was afraid that other underground life forms would discover it. Therefore, a large portion of the ore core that was difficult to digest was stored in this Class 4 gnome's stomach. This allowed Lin Yuan to see the opportunity for the Class 4 gnome to rapidly transform its bloodline and evolve into an ore vein gnome. End of this chapter. Chapter 1194. When dimensional life forms were undergoing the source-type baptism, they would completely stimulate the hidden energy within their bodies. Using the source-type baptism, the Class 4 gnome could attempt to completely digest the energy in the ore core. Once the ore core's energy was completely digested, the gnome would have at least an 80% chance of metamorphosis. After probing the gnome's emotions, Lin Yuan realized that the Void Shadow Demon's training had made the gnome completely obedient. In such a state, the gnome was already qualified to metamorphose into an apostle. As genius grade increased, its learning ability also increased. Soon, Genius's grasp of the underground world's language reached the same standard as this Class 4 gnome. Genius arranged the knowledge regarding the underground world's language and transmitted it to Lin Yuan, Lu Jie, and the Void Shadow Demon's minds through the end of connection. Lu Jie had never seen Genius use its abilities. Although Lu Jie could sense Genius grade and grade, he didn't know anything about Genius's abilities. Genius's current abilities amazed Lu Jie. The most difficult thing between humans was communication. Genius's ability allowed two people's thoughts to perfectly blend together. It could also use the blended thoughts to perfectly understand the other person. This ability was truly terrifying. With this ability, the human heart wouldn't be the most difficult thing to understand. Instead, it could be completely displayed in the open for people to browse through like watching a movie. While Lu Jie was in awe, an abnormal spiritual energy was transmitted into his mind. Since it was Genius's spiritual energy, Lu Jie had no reason to reject it. After gladly accepting it, Lu Jie suddenly felt as though he could understand the noises that were transmitted to his ears. These noises came from the various underground life forms that were stuck on the spider web. Lu Jie calmed down and realized that he actually completely understood the meaning of these underground life forms' cries. This discovery caused Lu Jie's pupils to suddenly shrink. He had seen so many carcinoma phase in the land of spirit suppression. Among them, there were several S-class anomalies that caused Lu Jie's hair to stand on end at the thought of them. Those S-grade anomalies in the depths of the land of spirit suppression were all powerful killing machines. Some of them would cause a disaster that even Her Majesty might not be able to do much. Even if Her Holiness could kill it with all her might, she couldn't bear the consequences of those things wreaking havoc. And now, Genius was sharing the knowledge within its body with other living beings. The ability to help other beings gain knowledge opened his eyes to many possibilities. In the current world, any one of these possibilities could only exist in the imagination. However, if Genius continued to develop its abilities, it would definitely be able to turn the things in its imagination into reality. In Lu Jie's opinion, Lin Yuan would expose Smart's ability in front of him. It was completely out of absolute trust in him. Lu Jie planned to lock what he had learned today in his mind and never mention it to anyone else. Even the other companions in the return from faraway manor. The Void Shadow Demon didn't think too much about it. As early as the moment the Void Shadow Devil recognized Lin Yuan as its ruler, it would not be surprised by anything Lin Yuan did. As far as the Void Shadow Fiend was concerned, sovereigns were omnipotent existences. With Genius's tale of interconnection, Lin Yuan wasn't able to obtain any information regarding the apostles from the goblin's spiritual energy. It seemed that this goblin was too weak and wasn't qualified to hear about the legends of the apostles in the underground world. Lin Yuan didn't keep it in suspense and immediately communicated with the princess in the depths of his soul. Princess, time to work. Prepare 400 portions of source-type power and baptize this goblin's source-type. The princess was a little wary when she heard Lin Yuan's instructions. Master, there's someone beside you. Will it be bad if I use my ability? Lin Yuan glanced at Lu Jie and the Void Shadow Devil and shook his head. The Void Shadow Devil had dedicated its faith to him, and the power of faith was stored in the shrine in its mind. The Void Shadow Devil had just recently dedicated its faith to him, but it had already taken up the largest cluster of faith in the shrine. It could be said that the Void Shadow Devil's faith in him was fanatical. Faith was the most sacred thing to dimensional lifeforms. Dimensional lifeforms had always used their lives to defend the faith in their hearts. As for Lu Jie, if he hadn't pushed Lin Yuan away in the underground dimensional rift to block that attack, Lin Yuan wouldn't have been able to survive. Lin Yuan wasn't sure if he would still be alive now. Therefore Lin Yuan had nothing to hide in front of Lu Jie. Lu Jie would always follow him to the swamp world. With the opening of the Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift, people would constantly explore the Abyss world. The concept of apostles would soon surface in the exploration. At that time, Lu Jie would easily discover that Wendy and Shiteng in the swamp world were both apostles. Everything in the dimensional world was still in the exploration stage. By establishing a base in the swamp world, he was already the forerunner of the dimensional world. Lin Yuan planned to bring Lu Jie along in the exploration of the dimensional world. He could casually display the princess's strength in front of Lu Jie. The princess was the product of the combination of two sacred source life forms and was somewhat special. However, it was still something that originally existed in this world. Morbius, on the other hand, was different. Morbius was Lin Yuan's greatest trump card, and he didn't even tell his only blood relative, Chu Ci. Lin Yuan intended to keep Morbius' secret in his stomach forever. It's fine. Let's start. Take a little longer to inject the source-type power into this goblin. Give the gnome some time to digest the remaining energy in its body. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's instructions, the princess replied energetically, "Don't worry. I'll inject the 400 portions of source-type power into this goblin's body in 40 batches. Every 10 portions is a unit." As they conversed, the princess's image appeared behind Lin Yuan. Lu Jie immediately revealed a strange expression when he saw the princess's image appear behind Lin Yuan. On one hand, Lu Jie did not understand why Lin Yuan was activating his sacred source life form. Lu Jie was not a creation master and could not examine Lin Yuan's sacred source life form's abilities. During the martial and civil duels, Lu Jie knew that Lin Yuan's sacred source life form had two abilities. One ability was a strong resistance to fire elements. The other ability was an extremely powerful dark-type attack ability. Under such circumstances, there was no need to activate these two abilities. On the other hand, Lu Jie found that the woman's image behind Lin Yuan, who was wearing a crown, holding a long sword and flying skirt, was much more exquisite than before. Especially that silk skirt, it seemed to contain an even more beautiful scenery than before. End of this chapter. Chapter 1195. Before Lu Jie could think further, he saw Lin Yuan and the woman behind him raise their hands at the same time. An amber energy ray gushed out of Lin Yuan's palm and shot toward the green-skinned gnome that was kneeling on the ground. The moment the amber energy appeared, the Void Shadow Demon, who had been standing to the side, felt his knees buckle. It knelt on the ground in a devout and respectful manner. The Void Shadow Demon's body trembled violently. This was the first time in its life that it had experienced such pure source-type power. The Void Shadow Demon thought to itself, "I wonder how many lifetimes this Class 4 gnome has cultivated for it to actually obtain the Lord Ruler's appreciation. With such pure source-type power, as long as the Lord Ruler isn't stingy, this Class 4 gnome might be able to become an apostle today." However, the Void Shadow Demon was not envious. This was because Lin Yuan had made the same promise to it. At that time, it would be able to accept Lin Yuan's pure source-type power and become an apostle just like this gnome. It had not accepted the source-type baptism yet because it wanted to accumulate more. It would strive to use the source-type baptism to become an apostle and at the same time be immortal. As the pure source-type power poured into the Class 4 gnome, the grayish-green color on its body kept receding. Its skin started to turn bluish. However, the gnome's short stature still did not grow. Its ears were getting sharper and its teeth were getting sharper. These sharp teeth made it easier for the Class 4 gnome to chew on metals that were difficult to chew. After Lin Yuan poured 200 portions of source-type power into the Class 4 gnome's body, it had completely turned into a greenish-blue-skinned dwarf. As the source-type power continued to be poured in, the Class 4 gnome's body started to have some faint tattoo-like veins. At first, these veins seemed rather abrupt. However, these veins gradually became more and more aligned, and it looked like layers of a mine in Lin Yuan's eyes. After Lin Yuan poured in the last portion of source-type power, he had finished pouring in 400 portions of source-type power. When the last portion of source-type power was poured in, a vigorous hiss came out of the Class 4 gnome's throat. An amber totem suddenly lit up on the Class 4 gnome's nose. On the amber totem was the outline of a towering mine. The mine had a strong metallic luster. This totem was the faith totem that the level 4 goblin had awakened after becoming an apostle, the metal mountain totem. Lin Yuan used true data to check on the apostle gnome. Exotic beast name: Mine Goblin, life form. Apostle, exotic beast level 4, power of faith. Extremely weak, faith totem. Metal mountain totem innate skills frowny face metal growth. Sign a contract with a type of metal and absorb the metal's energy to increase one's strength. After increasing one's strength, one will feed the metal back to the metal, causing it to increase in size. After swallowing a certain amount of the contracted metal, one's body will begin to remember the metal. When one is not swallowing the metal, one can use the energy within one's body to create the metal that the body remembers. Every time one increases in grade, one can replace a type of metal. Or vein heart. When discovering an unmined or vein, you can use your heart's blood to raise the purest or core in the depths of the ore vein, turning the ore in the core into ore essence. After signing a contract with the ore essence, you can use the ore essence to mine the ore vein. After the ore vein is mined, you can increase your strength by devouring the ore essence. Power of faith frowny face bloodman transformation. By injecting a portion of the totem's energy into the bloodman's body, it can transform the bloodman's life form, allowing the bloodman to transform from an ordinary dimensional creature into a blessed believer through the power of the totem. He realized that this class 4 goblin's bloodline had completely transformed into a mine goblin. It could be assumed that the appearance of the class 4 goblin's tattoos was because its bloodline had completely evolved into a mine goblin. After transforming into an apostle, the mine goblin's metal growth talent had been strengthened. Originally, the mine goblin could only sign a contract with one type of metal at a time. After increasing the grade and changing the type of contracted metal, the originally contracted metal could no longer continue to grow. However, the mine goblin's body could now carry out a memory of the metal. After swallowing a certain amount of contracted metal, the mine goblin's body would be able to carry out a memory of the metal. Afterward, it could use its own energy to wantonly create the metal that the body remembered. Although the mine goblin's metal growth talent had been strengthened, there were still only a few types of metal that the mine goblin could remember. However, the mine goblin had indeed created something out of nothing. As long as the energy could keep up, the metal that the body remembered could be continuously created. The mine goblin was equivalent to a human-shaped mine. After transforming into an apostle, the new or vein heart talent allowed the mine goblin to form an army. It could take on the mining team's work by itself. Afterward, it could also devour the ore essence formed from the ore core without any waste to increase its strength. Lin Yuan could not be more satisfied with the class 4 mine goblin after transforming into an apostle. Under the Void Shadow Demon's training, the mine goblin had already regarded Lin Yuan as a god. Due to its level in the underground world, the mine goblin had never heard of the legend of an apostle. However, it knew that Lin Yuan had undergone a great upgrade in its entire life level. No matter how cunning the mine goblin was, it should still be grateful to Lin Yuan. The gnome stood up from the ground and bowed to Lin Yuan as he spoke. "Master, from now on, I will only listen to your instructions." While speaking, he glanced at the Void Shadow Demon. However, he was no longer as afraid of the Void Shadow Demon. After transforming into an apostle, his strength was far inferior to the Void Shadow Demon. However, the difference in life level made him look down on the Void Shadow Demon for no reason. The fact that a Class 4 goblin dared to look down on the Class 11 Void Shadow Demon showed the difference in status between the life levels of dimensional lifeforms. Lin Yuan did not expect the Class 4 Mine Goblin to give itself a name. From the way the Mine Goblin gave itself a name, it could be seen that the Mine Goblin had extremely high intelligence. However, it was a little strange for a dwarf to give himself the name Mountain. Lin Yuan did not know how much hope this name carried. Not only had the Mine Goblin's bloodline transformed, but its life level had also been promoted to the apostle level. Based on ability alone, the name Mount Chong was not unexpected at all. Lin Yuan smiled and said, "Mountain, you have to work hard in the future. Mountain, you have to work hard in the future. By the way, what kind of metal did you sign a contract with for your metal proliferation talent?" Chapter 1196. Upon hearing that, the ore vein goblin hurriedly stretched out its palm, and soon Lin Yuan saw metal ions dissociating from its palm. Slowly, a metal sphere condensed in the gnome's hand. "For as long as I can remember, I've always had ores to eat. I don't need to use my talent to create my own metals to satisfy my hunger. That's why I've only signed a contract with this metal. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan could not help but hold his forehead with his hand. Goblins were indeed blessed by the heavens. In the dimensional world, where danger lurked everywhere, Chongshan had to take risks to find food in order to survive. Chongshan's life was like that of a deity. If other gnomes heard what Chongshan said, they would be jealous. After taking a closer look, Lin Yuan realized that the metal sphere in the ore vein gnome's hand was a kind of fireheart copper that could only be produced in the underground dimensional rift. The blazeheart copper might only be produced in underground dimensional rifts, but its actual price wasn't high. Flame core copper was mainly used as a high-heat fuel. There were many fire attribute spiritual materials produced in the abyss world that could replace the flame heart copper. Therefore Lin Yuan spoke. Mountain, since you signed a contract with the fire heart copper when you were at a lower level, you should be able to change the metal type of the contract now, right? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Mountain nodded vigorously. Yes, master. I can change the type of contract metal at any time. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan reached out and patted Mountain's shoulder. Without my permission, don't you dare change the metal type of your metal growth contract. Later, I'll give you a metal spirit material for you to use to form a contract with. When the time comes, try to help me produce more of this metal spirit material. Hearing this, Chongshan grinned, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth under his bluish-purple lips. Master, leave it to Chongshan. Chongshan is the best at producing metals. Chongshan said as he pointed in the distance. Master, Chongshan sensed a mine a kilometer away. The fluctuations from this mine are extremely strong. It should be a large mine. Upon hearing Mountain's words, Lin Yuan turned to Lu Jie and the Void Shadow Demon. Why don't we follow Chongshan to see what kind of minerals are hidden in the underground mineral vein? Upon hearing that, Lu Jie looked at the Class 2 underground dimensional rift and asked Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan, what are you planning to do with this pinnacle Class 2 underground dimensional rift? Can Inawa's white bone flower seed grow to this position and use it to surround the pinnacle Class 2 dimensional rift? Lin Yuan first sensed the silver flower's current growth progress and then smiled. Based on Silver Splendor's current strength, it's impossible to expand 90 kilometers in this direction. How long can the web domain glass spider control this Class 2 underground dimensional rift? If I give Yinhua a month and a half to grow and increase my rank, I think Yinhua should be able to enter the gold rank in that time. When the time comes, the area of the gold-silver splendor sea of flowers should be able to expand to 90 kilometers to the north. Lu Jie grabbed 2 handfuls of platinum protein cocoon chrysalises and sprinkled them on the web weaved by the reticulated glass spider. Since that's the case, I won't recall the Netrealm glass spiders for the next 1.5 months. These 2 platinum protein cocoon chrysalises are enough for the reticulated glass spider's daily consumption. In addition, if Heavy Mountain really finds an ore vein, I will let the reticulated glass spider continue to weave a giant web of 1 kilometer to reach the location of the ore vein. After that, according to Heavy Mountain's detection of the ore vein's range, use 30% of the spider web to completely seal off the area where the ore vein is located. As a Radiance 100 sequence member, Lu Jie was very clear about the value of an ore vein. Moreover, this ore vein was very likely to be a large one. Even if this ore vein produced the cheapest minerals like inferior energy ores, a large mine would be able to make a lot of money. Upon hearing Lu Jie's words, Lin Yuan said delightedly, then I'll have to trouble Big Brother Lu. However, the reticulated glass spider's web requires a lot of energy. Lu Jie, I can let the reticulated glass spider eat the weak dimensional life forms on the spider web that can't last for a month even if they are provided with food. Lu Jie instructed the reticulated glass spider to gnaw on the protein cocoon chrysalises and spit silk while replying to Lin Yuan. As long as we don't encounter any powerful enemies that will destroy the spider web, these energy cocoons will be enough. If any dimensional creature really can't hold on and is on the verge of death, the spider web will secrete mucus and pour it into the mouth of the dying dimensional creature on the spider web. Although this mucus doesn't taste good, the nutrients it contains are enough to prolong one's life. At the same time, this mucus also has the effect of healing emotional wounds. Once Silver Splendor Sea of Flowers spreads over, all the dimensional life forms that emerge from this pinnacle Class 2 underground dimensional rift within a month will become Silver Splendor's fresh rations. While they were talking, they had arrived at the area pointed out by Chongshan. The mine goblins themselves had the ability to change the landscape. After reaching the area, the land at the foot of the mountain quickly collapsed. The collapse of the land only stopped when it reached a depth of nearly 30 meters. Chongshan used his hands to feel around the 30-meter deep hole in the ground. Soon he found a few ores with a silver metallic luster. Carrying the silver metallic ores, Chongshan returned to the ground. Heavy Mountain said as he handed over the ores he found underground. Master, these are the types of ores produced in this mine. Don't judge the quality of the ores in the outer layer of the mine. Break open the outer layer of the mine, and the quality of the ores in the mine will be better. Lin Yuan took a look at the ores that Heavy Mountain handed over and found that the mine actually produced the spirit-fixing silver, a silver metallic material. When creation masters were concocting proficient spirit liquids or those with relatively cheap spiritual ingredients, they would generally use crystal vessels. In order to stabilize the spirit liquids and reduce the probability of failure, the creation masters would put away their usual crystal vessels. The creation master would then put away the usual crystal bottles and utensils. Instead, they would use vessels made of the spirit-fixing silver, a silver metallic material. In the Radiance Federation, the spirit-fixing silver that creation masters used was sold in the Creation Master Association. However, the price was relatively higher than the market price. Batches of spirit-fixing silver would occasionally appear in the market. After these batches of spirit-fixing silver appeared, there would be no chance for them to be put on the star web. They would be snapped up by the creation masters with the channels. Lin Yuan understood this very well. After all creation masters were tycoons. Even for expensive plant phase like the flower brocade pearls, creation masters would want to hoard more. Let alone the daily necessities of spirit-fixing silver. End of this chapter. Chapter 1197. Since the utensils made of spirit fixation silver were necessary for creation masters to concoct spirit fluids, the price of silver spirit fixation silver naturally rose. Although the production of spirit fixation silver in the Radiance Federation was not low, its price was already comparable to some gold metals. After confirming that the ore vein produced silver spirit fixation silver, Lin Yuan knew that the metal produced in the ore vein would not be a problem. Lin Yuan knew that the metal produced in this ore vein would definitely not have to worry about sales. Lin Yuan did not expect to earn his first bucket of gold in this way on his second day in the Divine Wood Federation. Lin Yuan immediately asked the goblin, "Mountain, can you find the ore core of the spirit fixation silver mine?" "Mountain, can you find the ore core of the spirit fixation silver mine?" Mountain replied, "I can find it. However, during the search I need to go deep into the ore vein, sense and constantly dig to find the location of the ore core. The process will take 2 to 7 days depending on the size of the ore vein." Lin Yuan pointed at the spirit fixation silver mine under his feet and said, "In that case, stay here and explore the ore vein. In that case, stay here and explore the ore vein. After finding the ore core, you can use your talent or vein heart to raise the spirit of the ore core and sign a contract with the ore essence. I'll bring you the metal that you need to sign a contract with through your talent, metal proliferation in 2 or 3 days." Now that the net domain glass spider's web had covered over, Lin Yuan would let Mountain communicate with the net domain glass spider. This would allow the spider's web to completely surround the area belonging to the ore vein. Lin Yuan had a lot of things to do and naturally did not have the time to accompany Mountain to search for the ore core. At that moment, the Void Shadow Demon once again hid in Lin Yuan's shadow. Lin Yuan and Lu Jie also returned to the area where the underground palace was located. After a night, the area where Silver Flower had spawned the Bone Lotus was still the size of a football field. But now, the size of the Bone Lotus flower within the football field was twice its original size. It looked elegant and sturdy. The bone fog above the sea of flowers was getting thicker, and the effect of blocking vision was getting stronger. The white bone mist could even block the entrance of the dark red dimensional rift. As soon as he returned to the underground palace, Lin Yuan gave Silver Flower instructions. In addition to continuing to use the dead souls of dimensional life forms to nurture the hermit undead servants, everything else, such as spawning the bone worms and increasing the strength of the bone lotus in the sea of flowers, had to be postponed. Instead, he put more energy on the sea of flowers that was spreading toward the north. Lin Yuan could not live in the underground palace now. Even if Hu Quan was a Class 5 spirit craftsman, he might not even be able to understand the underground palace's framework in a day, let alone draw the design and start construction. Given Hu Quan's demand for perfection in his work as a spirit craftsman, he might need a month to finish the design. Not to mention the fact that they were short of manpower to build the underground palace quickly. Therefore, Lu Jie simply set up a few tents at the edge of the underground palace. Before the construction of the underground palace was completed, they still had a place to live comfortably. He called out Feng Shuang and Old He who were working in the underground palace, and prepared to take them into the swamp world first. Of Palace Fog Mountain. Flower. with Feng's spirit Tian God. This was to assist Hu Quan in building the structure of the underground palace as soon as possible. Hu asked Hu Tian's Fei to be suitable for civil engineering. Demons. Demon Spirit Dragon. Masters. Spirit. Li. Just as Lin Yuan was about to enter the spirit lock spatial zone. After sensing the pure spirit qi, the little squirrel stuck to Lin Yuan and crawled onto Lin Yuan's shoulder again. He simply brought the squirrel, which was abnormally sensitive to spirit qi, into the spirit lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan had a lot of things to do in the spirit lock spatial zone. As soon as he entered the spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan saw the ground full of 100 questions beasts concocting spirit fluids. It made the spirit lock spatial zone, which originally had plenty of empty space, abnormally crowded. In a crowded situation, each 100 questions beast could only occupy an area of 1 square meter. As a result, the 100 questions beasts could only bend their arms as much as possible to prevent them from touching their companions. They would not disturb their companions. Many of the 100 questions beasts had not been taught by genius to become creation masters. If all 100 questions beasts were taught by genius, Lin Yuan would not be able to enter the spirit lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan called Genius, who was using the interconnection tail to teach the 800 questions beasts. Genius, the spirit lock spatial zone is too congested now. Why don't you find the 100 questions beasts that can take charge on their own? I will bring them into the swamp world later. Let these 100 questions beasts concoct the spirit fluid in the swamp world. Lin Yuan recalled Purple Firmament's report. He had arranged the 35 spirit craftsmen into the swamp world. With sufficient spirit qi, the 35 spirit craftsmen had already finished building the nurturing rooms that they had arranged for them to build first. These newly built breeding rooms could be arranged for the 100 questions beasts to concoct the spirit fluid. That way, every 100 questions beast could have their own incubation room when they were working. Genius meowed after hearing Lin Yuan's arrangement. Lin Yuan, I have already used the smart cat spirit to form a contract with all the 100 questions beasts I have taught. Even if they are not in the spirit lock spatial zone, there will not be any problems. Genius immediately started to choose carefully among the 100 questions beasts it had taught. Lin Yuan told Genius about his plan and prepared to find a few different types of completely jade-textured wood. When he was about to plant the spirit wisdom purple zoysia spores he had obtained from the Miao family's beast creation garden, Lin Yuan noticed from the corner of his eye that his shoulder was like snow, with fur constantly falling. The fur turned from yellow-brown to red and finally bright orange-red. Lin Yuan turned to look and realized that the little squirrel that he had brought into the spirit lock spatial zone was wrapped in a pile of fur that had fallen off. Lin Yuan brushed aside the fur and saw that the squirrel's fur had completely turned orange-red. It looked as though it was intoxicated by the pure spirit qi. When the little squirrel stopped shedding its fur, Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to investigate it. Lin Yuan realized that this little squirrel could already see true data. In other words, this little squirrel, which was originally not a fey, had transformed into a fey under the effect of the pure spirit qi. Lin Yuan's pupils contracted when he saw the name under True Data. Longevity Rat. This name seemed to be closely related to life. Chapter 1198. When Lin Yuan checked this longevity rat's ability, he was stunned. After a long while, Lin Yuan couldn't help but slap his thigh. Lin Yuan, who had always been civilized, couldn't help but curse. Fuck, what kind of godly fey is this? Under True Data, the normal normal longevity rat's basic ability was life formation. Fate lifespan divination. Lifespan is bound to the contractor. When the contractor's lifespan is exhausted, it can transmit its own lifespan to the contractor's body to help the contractor replenish its lifespan. In the case of one party dying, the other party will also die due to the mutual binding of lifespan. Due to its body structure, the longevity rat can't increase its strength and won't obtain any abilities or exclusive skills. Its vitality rating won't increase either. Just looking at this ability might not seem like much. After all, this ability just fused the lifespan of two life forms together. Correspondingly, during the process of two life forms living together, the consumption of lifespan would also be doubled. However, after this squirrel transformed into a fey, it also had a natural ability. It could devour objects that contained life force and digest the object's life force in its body. It would then convert the life force into lifespan and store it. This ability, combined with the normal ability, life formation, allowed the life formation to undergo a qualitative change. It also made the longevity rat no longer simple. As long as the longevity rat could constantly eat spiritual ingredients that contained life force, its lifespan would constantly accumulate. Under such circumstances, the longevity rat's contractor wouldn't have to worry about the lifespan drying up and dying over time. Since ancient times, longevity had been an unrealistic, extravagant hope. Even an emperor-class expert's lifespan wasn't infinite. At best, they could live longer than ordinary people. After the world was filled with spirit chi, ordinary people could live up to 100 to 110 years without any malignant diseases or accidents. There were also many cases of people living up to 130 years old. If one had the qualifications to become a spirit chi professional and reach the level of an A-rank king-class expert, it wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be a problem to live up to 150 to 160 years old. Emperor-class experts who were good at taking care of themselves and often used high-grade spiritual ingredients to nourish themselves could live up to 170 to 180 years old. When a spirit chi professional reached S rank or above and possessed a creation breed Fey, they would be promoted to the Thearch grade. A spirit chi professional's lifespan would be greatly increased like when they were at the Emperor class. As long as he didn't die midway, it wouldn't be difficult for him to live past 250 years old. This was also one of the reasons why Emperor-class combatants were so important to peak forces. This was because as long as an Emperor-level combatant didn't die and didn't go out to cause trouble, they wouldn't be able to survive. It could guarantee the prosperity of the peak forces for more than 50 years. However, everything in the world had its own rules and fate. Regardless of whether everything was strong or weak, splendid or desolate, they were all doing their best to survive within their limited lifespans. However, there was a limit to one's strength. Even an emperor-level powerhouse would one day be buried. The flowers were blooming, the beautiful flowers had already withered, and all the flourishing things had become empty. However, the appearance of the lifespan mouse had broken the iron law of lifespan, allowing a person to truly live as long as the heavens and achieve eternity. Lin Yuan didn't believe it. In this world where one fought against the heavens and contracted Fays with martial prowess, who didn't have extravagant hopes of longevity. Even Lin Yuan, who had just arrived in this world and understood its current situation, felt a chill run down his spine. Lin Yuan once had the thought of immortality. Lin Yuan could imagine how helpless and desolate an expert's lifespan would be when it was about to reach the end. Such an expert was often willing to do anything in order to prolong their lifespan and survive. If the lifespan mouse appeared in front of such an expert who was about to reach the end of their lifespan, how crazy would they be? In order to prolong their lifespan by a few years, a few months, or even a few days, they would not hesitate to use all their resources. If there was a chance to find longevity in front of them, what these experts were willing to pay was probably far more than just resources. It could be said that the lifespan mouse's ability could see through the essence of everything. That was to live. In fact, Fays like the lifespan mouse weren't perfect. If one had to look at it with a picky eye, the lifespan mouse really had two drawbacks. One of them was that the lifespan mouse's strength would forever be stuck at normal and could not be improved. In other words, contracting the lifespan mouse was equivalent to permanently contracting a normal Fey. It was this first thing that deepened the second drawback. Lifespan settlement bound the lifespan mouse's lifespan and the spirit chi professional's lifespan together. When one party died, the lifespan would naturally be exhausted. In other words, if the lifespan mouse died, even if the contractor still had lifespan in his body, he would immediately die. However, the lifespan mouse, which was forever stuck at normal, was simply too weak. As long as a child could grab the lifespan mouse, he could crush it to death with force. However, these two drawbacks weren't a problem in Lin Yuan's opinion. After contracting the lifespan mouse, the contractor could store it in the spiritual spatial zone. Even when the lifespan mouse needed to eat spiritual ingredients that contained vitality to accumulate lifespan, it could be arranged in the Fey storage box. There was no need to worry about exposing the lifespan mouse and bearing any possible risks. Since the lifespan mouse was a normal Fey, there was no need to worry about spiritual energy consumption when contracting it. Even Lin Yuan could afford to contract it now. In addition, there was no need for Lin Yuan to consider the spiritual ingredients that contained vitality to accumulate lifespan. Spiritual ingredients that contained vitality might be expensive, but they were not rare. Experts who were qualified to contract the lifespan mouse didn't need to worry about spiritual ingredients that contained vitality at all. The ease of using lifespan settlement was actually one of the lifespan mouse's strengths. The moment he sighed at the lifespan mouse, Lin Yuan thought of his master, the Moon Empress. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the most suitable person to contract this lifespan mouse was his master, the Moon Empress. People like him, Chu Xiai, Lu Jie, and even when you were only in their teens or 20s. They still had more than 100 years of lifespan. At such a young age, life had just begun. There was no need to consider aging and the consumption of lifespan. Lin Yuan didn't know the Moon Empress' exact age, as she had always had the appearance of a young woman. However, his master, the Moon Empress, was definitely not young. After all, it had been decades since she had become Her Holiness and established the Radiant Moon Palace on the Leaning Moon Mountain. After contracting the lifespan mouse, the Moon Empress would never have to worry about her lifespan drying up. ABC. Chapter 1199. In the state of eternal life, his master did not need to make any compromises. She also did not need to be restrained. The Moon Empress, who had transcended the shackles of lifespan, could live with the mentality of a young person forever. This was what Lin Yuan wanted, and it was also considered a token of his appreciation for the Moon Empress. Moreover, it was very likely that there was more than one longevity rat. Before the longevity rat had metamorphosed into a fae, Lin Yuan had encountered the 5 Dry Cliff Bandits scouts. The 5 scouts from the Dry Cliff Bandits were quite disdainful of the lifespan rats that they had before they had transformed into fays. This meant that there should be a lot of longevity rats in the Divine Wood Federation. Even when the Divine Wood Federation lacked furs, the Dry Cliff Bandits, who were so poor that they could only wear rattan armor, did not have the intention to capture the longevity rat. Lin Yuan recalled the longevity rat's sparse and easily broken fur before it had transformed into a fae. It would be strange if it could be liked by others. But now the lifespan rat had transformed into a fae, and its appearance had changed drastically. The orange-furred lifespan rat's appearance was slightly inferior to Genius, but it was not much inferior. Lin Yuan reached out and rubbed the longevity rat's small head before solemnly storing it in a bronze fae storage box. After returning to the Divine Wood Federation, Lin Yuan planned to go to the Radiant Moon Palace again. He could give this longevity rat to the Moon Empress. After the Celestial Body meeting, he would return to the Divine Wood Federation again. Lin Yuan planned to go to the town 25 kilometers away to see if he could get more longevity rats. There were many longevity rats that had not transformed into fays in the Divine Wood Federation. Lin Yuan felt that with the longevity rat in hand, he was definitely qualified to change the situation in the origin world. After storing the longevity rat in the bronze fae storage box, Lin Yuan began to carefully select the completely jade-textured wood on the wooden shelf in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. If not for Genius and the Moon Empress disciple status, Lin Yuan would not have known about the Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia. Lin Yuan would not have known about it. Even if Genius could grasp all the knowledge on the star web, given the circulation level of star web knowledge, no one would post the information about the Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia on the star web. The reason why Lin Yuan knew about spiritual ingredients like the Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia was because Genius had studied some of the information in the Hidden Moon Pavilion. Morbius True Data could see through a phase essence and understand its abilities and exclusive skills. However, Lin Yuan had to figure out how to nurture phase by himself. For example, he had the Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia spores, but what kind of completely jade-textured wood could grow faster? Lin Yuan needed to conduct experiments to verify it. Compared to the Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia, the price of the completely jade-textured wood was nothing. After all, a spiritual item like the Spirit Wisdom Purple Ganoderma could only be used by core Emperor-level and Emperor-level experts in the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden. Back then, the Spiritual Wisdom Purple Zoysia was used on Lu Yenshan. At present, he needed a large number of Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia to upgrade Genius from Fantasy Eye. Therefore, he generously took out all the completely jade-textured wood he had and placed them in front of him. There were 20 to 30 types of completely jade-textured wood. Lin Yuan cut each type of completely jade-textured wood in order to achieve the same volume and surface area as much as possible. This was to seek fairness and objectivity. Lin Yuan carefully shook the Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia spores and scattered them on these cut completely jade-textured wood. Then he carefully observed them. The Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia's growth speed was based on the spiritual material's jade-textured degree and the surrounding environment's spirit chi concentration. The wood in Lin Yuan's hands had basically reached 100% jade-textured degree and was considered the best of the best. As for the Spirit Lock spatial zone's spirit chi concentration, there was nothing to say. There was probably no place in the world with a higher spirit chi concentration than the Spirit Lock spatial zone. After meeting the 2 growth conditions for the Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia spores, their growth speed would not be slow. They should soon grow into Spirit Wisdom Purple Zoysia fungus strains. The situation was as Lin Yuan had expected. Only half an hour had passed. On the completely jade-textured agarwood, cliff cypress, red sandalwood, and cassia wood blocks, the spirit wisdom purple zoysia spores first grew into a small cluster of fungi. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan took out these 4 wooden blocks separately. He was going to pick from these 4 types of completely jade-textured wood and eliminate the rest of the wood on the spot. However, the spirit wisdom purple zoysia spores on the completely jade-textured wood could not be wasted. When they grew strains and were strong enough, Lin Yuan still had to transplant them. Among the 4 wooden blocks that Lin Yuan took out to observe, the spirit wisdom purple zoysia on the cliff cypress grew the fastest. It was much faster than the spirit wisdom purple zoysia spores on the other 3 types of wood. However, Lin Yuan did not immediately decide to use the completely jade-textured cliff cypress as the type of wood to cultivate the spirit wisdom purple zoysia. In addition to speed, Lin Yuan also had to consider the spirit wisdom purple zoysia's growth degree on the 4 types of wood. Soon Lin Yuan found a problem with the spores on the cliff cypress. The fungi on the cliff cypress might grow fast, but the stem that grew was too slender. It looked very thin. Lin Yuan used his hand to push the spirit wisdom purple zoysia's fungi growing on the cliff cypress to compare with the fungi on the other 3 types of jade-textured wood. Lin Yuan found that the fungi on the cliff cypress, which grew the fastest, shook the most. After thinking about it again and again, Lin Yuan eliminated the cliff cypress, which grew the fastest spirit wisdom purple zoysia. After all, compared to growth speed, growth quality was more important. Moreover, the spores on these 4 types of wood could germinate almost at the same time, so their growth speed would not be too different. During his observation, Lin Yuan found another problem with the growth of the fungi on the moon cassia. The completely jade-textured moon cassia's wood was the hardest of the 4 types of wood. This caused the fungi to only absorb the nutrients on the surface of the moon cassia. It was already obviously strenuous for the spirit wisdom purple zoysia's fungi to penetrate the nutrients 5 centimeters below the surface. Therefore, Lin Yuan also excluded the completely jade-textured moon cassia. The fungi on the red sandalwood and agarwood were also very strong and had roughly the same growth speed. It was just that the agarwood fungi's canopy was larger than the red sandalwood fungi's canopy. The spirit wisdom purple zoysia's nutrients were mainly concentrated in its purple canopy. The spirit wisdom purple zoysia's larger canopy definitely contained more nutrients than the smaller canopy. In the end, Lin Yuan determined that the completely jade-textured agarwood was the material to cultivate the spirit wisdom purple zoysia. End of this chapter. Chapter 12:12. The mermaid, who was draped in the sacred garment of faith, had an extremely exquisite face. This face still looked like Lin Yuan's. However, the lines on Lin Yuan's face were now extremely soft. If Lin Yuan's previous handsomeness was only an 8 out of 10, it was his comfortable temperament that raised his handsomeness to a 9 out of 10. Now that the lines on his face had softened, he could completely oppress those human men or women who were recognized as very good-looking. It would not be accurate to describe Lin Yuan's face as extremely beautiful or extremely handsome. Perhaps only the face of faith, which was formed from the deepest love and worship in his heart, could accurately describe his current appearance. Lin Yuan stared at the astonished Bai Yan, who was in midair with a face of disbelief. Lin Yuan's long hair, which was filled with the power of faith, fluttered without any wind. The dense power of faith once again propped up the barrier, covering the entire territory and the swamp in front of it. The pressure formed by Bai Yan's power of faith was like a weak baby to the barrier formed by Lin Yuan's power of faith in the soul shrine. He looked at Lin Yuan's appearance and felt his body made of the power of faith. Bai Yan subconsciously muttered, "Faith, body of faith? Lord Hegeman." After spitting out the words Lord Ruler, Bai Yan's aura immediately weakened. However, Bai Yan's eyes were still filled with sorrow as he looked at the white scale armor fragments at Lin Yuan's feet. However, no matter how sorrowful Bai Yan was, he didn't dare to do anything disrespectful to Lin Yuan. For any apostle, rulers were supreme existences. This was a suppression of the hierarchy of life. Even if Bai Yan believed that his son had been killed by Lin Yuan, he still didn't dare to lower his head. Of course, that was only if Bai Yan didn't receive the blessings of the other sovereigns. In the dimensional world, there had always been a rule where kings did not meet kings. It was even rarer for sovereigns to face off against sovereigns. If other apostles with the ruler's favor discovered Lin Yuan and realized that Lin Yuan wasn't very strong, they would definitely kill him. He would definitely attack Lin Yuan. At that time, Lin Yuan's identity as a fake ruler would naturally be exposed during the fight. Lin Yuan's eyes flickered as he looked at Bai Yan. Upon sensing Bai Yan's respectful attitude, Lin Yuan removed his palm from the extreme token on his chest. From the looks of it, Bai Yan had been tricked by me, a fake ruler. In that case, the knowledgeable Bai Yan was like an encyclopedia regarding the swamp world to him. After Lin Yuan and Bai Lan had combined their faith possession earlier, they had an extraordinary perception of water sources. He immediately discovered the Class 2 White Sin Swamp Crocodile hidden under the Fu Lu's body. At this moment, the White Sin Swamp Crocodile was burying its head in the mud at the bottom of the swamp. Clearly, it was extremely afraid of Bai Yan. Lin Yuan looked at Bai Yan strangely. When Bai Yan saw the fragment of the white scale armor at his feet, the sorrow that emerged in his eyes didn't seem fake. However, the swamp crocodile was so afraid of Bai Yan. Could it be that Bai Yan was a strict elder? At this juncture, Lin Yuan couldn't possibly let the Class 2 White Sin Swamp Crocodile continue hiding out of fear of Bai Yan. If he didn't untie the knot in Bai Yan's heart, then even if Bai Yan treated him as a ruler, he wouldn't be able to do anything. There would definitely be obstacles to communication. Lin Yuan immediately shouted, "White Sin Swamp Crocodile, come out. I just transformed you into an apostle and you're already hiding? What's the meaning of this?" When the Class 2 White Sin Swamp Crocodile heard Lin Yuan's soft shout and the deterrence from his massive power of faith, it immediately reacted. The Class 2 White Sin Swamp Crocodile couldn't be bothered to be afraid of Bai Yan as it hurriedly drilled out of the water and arrived beside Lin Yuan's fishtail. The 60-meter-long Level 2 Swamp Crocodile was like a pug right now, swinging its tail while letting out gurgling sounds. It was as though it was yearning for Lin Yuan to caress its head. When Bai Yan saw his son emerge from the swamp, his body had greatly changed, the sadness in his eyes instantly disappeared. The sadness in his eyes was replaced by surprise and anger. Very quickly, the anger in Bai Yan's eyes suppressed the pleasant surprise. If Lin Yuan was not here, Bai Yan would have probably lifted the White Sin Swamp Crocodile up and given it a good beating. All along, Bai Yan had been extremely dissatisfied with this astonishingly talented son of his. Bai Yan was a playboy by nature. Wherever he went, he would take a liking to any female marsh crocodile. Not a single one of them could escape Bai Yan's visit. In the end, after nearly 1,000 years, Bai Yan only obtained a single descendant who inherited his mutated bloodline. Furthermore, the children who inherited his bloodline would have talent that far surpassed him. As a result, Bai Yan was extremely fond of this son that he had obtained with great difficulty. However, Bai Yan quickly discovered that something was wrong. His son could not stay idle for even a moment. As long as he was not in front of him, he would immediately slip away. He would even use his innate ability to use other marsh crocodiles to hide from him. This was fine, as it could be understood as the naughtiness of a child. However, what Bai Yan could not tolerate was that his son did not have the slightest interest in increasing his strength. Since then, Bai Yan had often used an iron hammer to educate his son. The reason why Bai Yan educated his son so harshly was because he hoped that his son would have a beautiful future. Now, this troublesome son of his had unexpectedly been transformed into an apostle by a ruler. What kind of opportunity was this? To put it bluntly, his son had the favor of a ruler and was already doing better than him. When he thought of this, the anger in Bai Yan's eyes turned into pride for his son's success. When Bai Yan looked at Lin Yuan again, apart from reverence, there was also a lot of gratitude. He recalled that the ruler was standing on the ground while he was in midair. Bai Yan hurriedly flew down and knelt on one knee in front of Lin Yuan. He lowered his arrogant head and said, "Greetings, Lord Ruler." Bai Yan's current attitude caused Lin Yuan to be secretly shocked at the dignity of a ruler. When Bai Yan stood in front of him, he was in a completely defenseless state. This state was not an act. However, as a fake ruler, Lin Yuan did not know what a true ruler should do in such a situation. Beads of sweat appeared on Bai Yan's forehead as he did not receive a response from Lin Yuan. He wondered if the Lord Ruler looked down on him. Bai Yan was a marsh crocodile. Due to a fortuitous encounter, his bloodline had mutated into a White Sin marsh crocodile. Bai Yan, who had always been arrogant, did not seem to care about his background. In fact, Bai Yan was very concerned about his background. Previously, Bai Yan had encountered a few apostles that had been favored by a ruler outside the Great Eastern Lake. Those apostles that had been favored by a ruler were weaker than him in terms of strength and power of faith. However, all of them were arrogant. Because of their bloodline, they looked at him with disdain. Chapter 12-13. When a person was born, their bloodline was determined by their parents and they had no choice. However, if he received the favor of a ruler, then even if he was still a swamp crocodile, no one would look down on him. Bai Yin hoped that the ruler before him would bestow him with the ruler's treasure, to show his favor. However, Bai Yin, who recognized his lowly status, did not dare to mention his wish to Lin Yuan. He was afraid that his wish would be blasphemed against Lin Yuan. One did not dare to say it, and the other did not know what to do. This caused the stalemate to descend into an endless loop. Although the Class 2 swamp crocodile was afraid of Bai Yin, it was still Bai Yan's offspring. The Class 2 swamp crocodile had already started to plead for Bai Yin. Lin Yuan had a helpless expression as he listened to the swamp crocodile's plea. At that moment, a voice that made Lin Yuan feel as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders echoed. Lin Yuan heard the swamp water moss-aged voice speak to him with abnormal respect. "My lord, this crocodile is really greedy. It actually kneels here to beg for your ruler's treasure." The swamp water moss changed the topic and used a stern and arrogant voice to speak to Bai Yin. "Hey, if you want to ask for our lord ruler's treasure, don't you know how to show respect to our lord ruler first?" In the past, the swamp water moss would not even dare to breathe loudly in front of Bai Yin. But now, relying on its relationship with Lin Yuan, the swamp water moss was like a fox borrowing the tiger's might to the extreme. As the lowest existence that preyed on plants, the swamp water moss was openly mocking Bai Yan's bloodline. The swamp water moss words seemed to have reminded Bai Yin. Bai Yin immediately took out 2 balls of rainbow light from his sleeves. Bai Yin held the 2 balls of rainbow light in his left and right hands and held them up as he spoke to Lin Yuan. "My lord, the one on the right is the source totem of the Nether Scorpion Apostle. The one on the right is the source totem that I snatched from another apostle. I do not know what kind of totem this source totem is formed from. These 2 source totems are currently the most precious things I have on me. I hope my lord will kindly accept them." Upon hearing Bai Yan's words, Lin Yuan realized that sacred source life forms were called source totems in the swamp world. Lin Yuan looked at the 2 uncontracted sacred source life forms in Bai Yan's hands covetously. However, Lin Yuan did not immediately take the sacred source life form from Bai Yin. He pretended to be nonchalant as he spoke to the swamp moss. "Swamp moss, you sure know a lot. I can't believe you know what a sovereign treasure is." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's compliment, the swamp water moss hurriedly replied with joy, "That's right. Sir, when I was following that stinky scorpion once made me a carpet in its cave. Coincidentally, I overheard that stinky scorpion talking about the ruler's treasure. It said that the sovereign's treasure is a treasure that was separated from the sovereign's body. Every sovereign's treasure has a different function. However, it is rumored that the ruler's treasure can provide the apostle with a boost in power, something the apostles yearn for even in their dreams. This is what I've heard. I wonder if that stinky scorpion is right. That stinky scorpion doesn't have the right to come into contact with a sovereign. Exalted One, what exactly is a sovereign treasure? You're the one who knows best what it does." Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly lit up after being flattered by the swamp water moss. The ruler's treasure could only provide a boost to the apostles and was separated from the sovereign's body. Wasn't the source water's water of faith compatible with the ruler's treasure's ability? The water of faith was a warm stream brewed from the power of faith. It could nourish life forms that used the power of faith as a source of power. The water of faith could also promote life forms that used the power of faith as a source of power to quickly recover the consumed power of faith and slowly increase the power of faith in the body. At the same time, the water of faith could be divided and then absorbed back into the body. He could also obtain the power of faith equivalent to the target's water of faith. At that thought, Lin Yuan looked up at Bai Yan's eyes. He found that Bai Yan's eyes were filled with reverence and pure desire. It was like an ignorant fae craving for pure spirit qi. The moment Bai Yin and Lin Yuan's eyes met, Bai Yin was immediately enchanted by Lin Yuan's azure eyes. Then Bai Yin blushed and lowered his head. As an apostle with above-average power of faith, Bai Yin was already incomparably handsome when he used the sacred source body. The sacred source body was an ability that the apostles obtained after their life rating increased. It was a manifestation of life evolution. Therefore, the apostles' sacred source bodies were not ugly. When Bai Yin had traveled outside the Great Marsh of the East, he had seen many apostles using the sacred source bodies. Bai Yin had even been fortunate enough to catch a glimpse of the Radiant Star Apostle, who was known as the most beautiful apostle in the Eastern Marsh area. Since then, Bai Yin had never forgotten about the Radiant Star Apostle. But now, compared to Lin Yuan, the Radiant Star Apostle was instantly reduced to dust. Even when the Radiant Star Apostle was smiling, it was as if she was bathing in the light of the stars. It was not as breathtaking as Lin Yuan's expressionless swing of his lower body's fishtail. Only God knew how many powerful apostles in the Eastern Marsh area fawned upon the Radiant Star Apostle's sacred source body. In order to obtain the Radiant Star Apostle's favor, they would do everything they could. If these people were fortunate enough to see the Lord Ruler's grace under the body of faith and then see the Radiant Star Apostle's sacred source body, they would definitely not be so envious. Suddenly, Bai Yin had the idea of suggesting that Lin Yuan participate in the Eastern Marsh area's beauty contest. The first place of the Eastern Marsh area's beauty contest was qualified to obtain a residence in the Eastern Marsh Palace. However, when Bai Yin thought of Lin Yuan's Lord Ruler identity, he dispelled the idea. Suddenly, Bai Yin felt Lin Yuan's unfathomable power of faith suddenly boil in front of him. The power of faith hidden in the water diffused outside the water, covering Lin Yuan's mermaid body with a sunset glow. Facing the marsh world's gentle breeze, the faith gauze robe fluttered behind Lin Yuan for dozens of kilometers. The range of the faith gauze robe fluttering had already exceeded the size of Lin Yuan's territory. Lin Yuan was also shocked by the power of faith with all his strength. Lin Yuan had never used the power of faith with all his strength in the real world. However, Lin Yuan felt that even if he used the power of faith with all his strength in the real world, he would never cause such a huge commotion. It should be because the power of faith was more compatible with the dimensional world's origins. At that moment, Lin Yuan used the power of faith with all his strength to use Blue's water of faith. When he used water of faith, Lin Yuan was still a little perturbed. He did not know if Bai Yin would really treat water of faith as the Lord Ruler's treasure after seeing it. Suddenly Lin Yuan felt his chest heat up. A stream of amber-like meandering water gushed out of Lin Yuan's chest. End of this chapter. Chapter 12-14. This stream of water surged out of Lin Yuan's body without stopping. It looked rather special. This meandering stream of water was the water of faith. Lin Yuan held the water of faith in his hand and threw it to Bai Yin, who was kneeling on one knee in front of him, without saying a word. Lin Yuan's expression seemed indifferent, but he was actually very flustered. Bai Yin was pleasantly surprised when he received the water of faith. Then, his eyes were filled with astonishment. It was as though he had seen something unbelievable. Lin Yuan's originally flustered heart immediately tensed up. Could it be that Bai Yin discovered something after receiving the water of faith? If Bai Yin really discovered something wrong and became suspicious, then I will have to use the extreme token. Just as Lin Yuan was about to use his spiritual power to activate the extreme token, Bai Yin once again knelt on one knee and continuously thanked him. Thank you, Lord Ruler, for bestowing the ruler's treasure. Bai Yin didn't expect the ruler's treasure to have such a powerful effect. Bai Yin lost his composure. Lord Ruler, please don't blame me. Looking at Lord Ruler's situation, I believe Lord Ruler should have stepped into the rebirth cycle. Lord Ruler, please allow Bai Yin to guard by your side. Hearing Bai Yan's words, Lin Yuan's expression did not change. However, he memorized all the important information in Bai Yan's words in his heart. Lin Yuan did not understand what the words, stepped into the rebirth cycle meant. However, it was obviously not appropriate to ask Bai Yin at this time. At the same time, Lin Yuan secretly considered whether keeping Bai Yin by his side was worth it. After some consideration, Lin Yuan gave up on the idea of keeping Bai Yin by his side. Keeping Bai Yin by his side was indeed equivalent to increasing his combat power. However, Lin Yuan could not bring Bai Yan's combat power to the origin world. Moreover, there was no contract between him and Bai Yin. The current relationship was maintained because Bai Yin regarded him as the ruler. If she kept Bai Yin by her side for a long time, it was very likely that Bai Yin would discover something. Thus, he would doubt the authenticity of his identity as the ruler. Lies could not withstand scrutiny. Thus, sending Bai Yin away was Lin Yuan's best choice. Bai Yin, since you said you want to follow me, why don't you take over the Dark Scorpion Apostle's territory? The Dark Scorpion Apostle is dead, but the Dark Scorpion Apostle's territory cannot be without a ruler. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, Bai Yan's face revealed an obvious dejected expression. It seemed like Lin Yuan did not intend to keep her by his side. Immediately after, Bai Yin carefully pondered over the Dark Scorpion Apostle's territory situation and said to Lin Yuan, Lord Ruler, the territory of the Dark Scorpion Apostle is right outside your territory. If you want to enter your territory, you have to pass through the territory of the Dark Scorpion Apostle. I will guard the first line of defense for you in the territory of the Dark Scorpion Apostles. After saying that, Bai Yin glanced at his son, who had been acting like a spoiled child and rolling around Lin Yuan to plead for him. As expected of his biological son, he knew to side with his father. When Bai Yan thought about how his son had such a fortuitous encounter at such a young age, he tried to fight for it with Lin Yuan. Sir, after I've reorganized the territory of the Dark Scorpion Apostles, I plan to expand the territory. It would be best if we can take control of the entire Eastern Lake. It won't be convenient to have that brat Bai Xian by my side when we expand our territory. I wonder. Upon seeing Bai Yan's hesitant expression, Lin Yuan immediately knew what he was thinking. Lin Yuan did not intend to let Bai Yan take the Class 2 White Sin Swamp Crocodile away. The development of Lin Yuan's territory could not do without the help of the Class 2 White Sin Swamp Crocodile. If he let Bai Yan take the Class 2 White Sin Swamp Crocodile, where would he find laborers for his territory? How would he develop his underwater combat strength? Although Lin Yuan had already made up his mind, he did not immediately agree to Bai Yan's request. Instead, he changed the topic. Do you have a way to obtain the Source Totem? Upon hearing Lin Yuan mention the Origin Totem, Bai Yan hurriedly handed the 2 sacred source life forms in his hands to Lin Yuan. This time Lin Yuan did not refuse and accepted the 2 sacred source life forms. Lin Yuan stored the unknown sacred source life form into the amber button-shaped diamond face storage box. As for the sacred source life form transformed from the Dark Scorpion Apostle Totem, Lin Yuan stored it in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone, intending to mark it. Since the sacred source life form was transformed from the totem after the apostle's death, even if the sacred source life form was shrouded in rainbow light, it could not be detected. He could still use the appearance of the totem and the ability of the sacred art under the sacred source body to determine the condition of the sacred source life form. That way he would be able to know what the sacred source life form would look like after it was contracted. Seeing that Lin Yuan was asking him a question, Bai Yan hurriedly spilled everything he knew like pouring beans out of a bamboo tube. There are 2 ways to obtain source totems. The first is to kill an apostle who can activate the source holy body. Apostles who can activate the sacred origin body will leave behind source totems that correspond to their own totems after death. The other method is to go to the only region in the East Marsh region that only apostles are allowed to enter, the East Marsh Circle, and conduct the transaction at the Myriad Palace in the East Marsh Circle. In the Myriad Palace, you can bring any item to the appraiser for evaluation. The appraiser will determine the price. Then you can use the priced goods in the Myriad Palace to exchange for goods. At this point Bai Yan paused for a moment. Seeing that Lin Yuan indicated for him to continue speaking, Bai Yan carefully said to Lin Yuan, "The Myriad Palace is not a local power in the East Marsh Circle. However, the Myriad Palace has a higher status than the East Marsh Circle's 10 apostles. This is because the Myriad Palace was established by the ruler of myriad things. The myriad palaces established by the ruler of myriad things are spread throughout the various regions of the Marsh world. In fact, as long as you have enough goods in the Myriad Palace that have been evaluated by the Myriad Envoy, you can exchange them for the ruler of myriad treasures." Based on Bai Yan's answer, Lin Yuan roughly knew how to obtain sacred source life forms in the Marsh world. Compared to passively waiting for Class 5-dimensional rifts to open in the main world, obtaining sacred source life forms through Class 5-dimensional rifts was much easier. It was undoubtedly much easier to obtain sacred source life forms in the Marsh world. At the same time, Bai Yan's words confirmed Lin Yuan's guess. The apostle's power of faith had to be below average in order to be able to use the sacred source body and possess a sacred arts ability. Only after death could the totem turn into a sacred source life form. Lin Yuan secretly noted down the information about the East Marsh Circle, East Marsh Palace, Myriad Palace, and the ruler of myriad things. Lin Yuan knew that with his current strength, it was still too far for him to set foot in the East Marsh Circle. Also, to be on the safe side, even if he wanted to set foot in the East Marsh Circle in the future, he absolutely could not enter as a ruler. Otherwise, he might cause trouble that he would not be able to handle. In the East Marsh Circle, any ruler faction's branch had a higher status than the East Marsh Palace. It was obvious that there were no rulers in the entire East Marsh Circle. ABC. Chapter 12-15. Today's experience made Lin Yuan realize that the swamp world was not a chaotic and disorderly world ruled by apostles. A larger and more perfect world appeared in front of Lin Yuan. It ignited Lin Yuan's desire to explore and gallop. In the following conversation with Bai Yan, Lin Yuan also learned how source-type items came about. There were 2 types of source-type items. One was that apostles who had not activated their sacred source bodies would turn into source-type items after death. The other type was an apostle with powerful or above faith power. The believers or blessings they received had the possibility of turning into source-type items after death. Of course, the possibility of blessings becoming source-type items was much higher than apostles. These source-type items were called believers' remnant thoughts in the swamp world. They were also sold in the Myriad Palace in the Swamp East Circle. However, Lin Yuan did not need to spend much effort to obtain source-type items in the Myriad Palace. Therefore, there was no need to exchange for source-type items in the Myriad Palace. Unless Lin Yuan could encounter a source-type item with strategic significance like the Demon's Heart again. Otherwise, it would be better to exchange for sacred source life forms than to exchange for ordinary source-type items. Sacred source life forms were not something that could be exchanged for with money in the origin world. After understanding the situation, Lin Yuan immediately sent Bai Yen to the Dark Scorpion Apostles' territory. Lin Yuan had also ordered Bai Yen to return to his territory once every month. Lin Yuan took advantage of the monthly opportunity to learn about the development of the Dark Scorpion Apostles' territory from Bai Yen. On the other hand, it was convenient for Lin Yuan to recover the water of faith he had given to Bai Yen to increase his power of faith. He also gave new water of faith to Bai Yen. This sudden storm was considered to have come to an end, and Lin Yuan had a huge harvest in this storm. This harvest was not only the 2 uncontracted sacred source life forms, but also the information about the swamp world that Lin Yuan knew. Lin Yuan had spent at least a few hours in the swamp world. It was not difficult for Lin Yuan to use his ability to produce water of faith. Lin Yuan prepared water of faith for Wendy, Sha Teng, and the Class 2 Swamp of White Sin crocodile Bai Xian. Especially Bai Xian. Bai Xian, who had the crocodile worship talent, would provide Lin Yuan with power of faith in the future. This storm made him realize how important the power of faith, which he had not thought highly of, was in the dimensional world. Meanwhile, Bai Lan's strength continued to rise without a moment's pause. Given the intensity of her power of faith, she could already use her exclusive skill, Power Water Soul, to devour the strange water. He had obtained the water elemental characteristics of the strange water and turned it into a willpower rune. However, it would take a long time for Blue to obtain a willpower rune to evolve into a fantasy breed. The Blue origin water was actually evolved from 12 water blobs. What looked like a single body was actually divided into 12 parts. Therefore, Bai Lan needed to obtain 12 different wills from 12 different water types. Each ball of water had to produce a willpower rune before it could be promoted to a fantasy breed. In addition, if Blue wanted to comprehend willpower from the strange water, it would require Lin Yuan's power of faith. Given Lin Yuan's current power of faith, Blue Jade could only comprehend 2 types of willpower from the strange water. Next, he had to think of a way to increase his power of faith in the main world. Harvesting the power of faith in the main world could be considered a long-term goal that Lin Yuan had set. After Lin Yuan sent the 50 questions beasts into the breeding room, he asked Lu Yenshan to guard the entrance of the breeding room. He also left a diamond face storage box for each of the 100 questions beasts. He arranged for the largest fat orange to be the leader of these 100 questions beasts when Genius wasn't around. The 50 questions beasts would be hoarding all kinds of spirit liquids for Lin Yuan. When the floating island whale carried the sky city to soar into the sky, he would be able to build a massive resource treasury on the floating island whale's back. After arranging the 50 questions beasts, Lin Yuan called out Feng Shuang and Old He, who were locked up in his treasure cave golden toad artifact. Apart from the breeding room that the 100 questions beasts were using, the other breeding rooms were not completed yet. 50 questions beasts were placed in the only completed breeding room. Lin Yuan naturally could not let Feng Shuang and Old He use it. Feng Shuang and Old He were planning to stay outside to help the territory develop and serve the 35 spirit craftsmen. From a creation master's point of view, he would make some effective suggestions for the territory's planning. After Feng Shuang and Old He were summoned by Lin Yuan, they used their Class 4 Creation Master experience. They first realized that this might be a swamp dimensional rift. After observing for a while, Feng Shuang and Old He realized that this place did not conform to the characteristics of a dimensional rift. There were no spatial fluctuations here. Soon the 2 of them were shocked and guessed that this couldn't be the swamp world, right? The 2 of them were very curious about how Lin Yuan had entered the swamp world. Could a Class 6 swamp dimensional rift have suddenly opened up at the location where Lin Yuan had constructed the underground palace? Lin Yuan did not have the leisure to explain to Feng Shuang and Old He how they had entered the swamp world. In short, the 2 of them just had to work. If they dared to be dishonest, Lu Yenshan and the slaughter butterfly would teach Feng Shuang and Old He a lesson. When Feng Shuang and Old He were outside, they could help the Medusas take care of Endless Summer's sacred source life form, the Arakawa orchid sprout. They could use the spirit liquids to improve the nutrients in the soil and slightly increase the Arakawa orchid sprout's growth rate. It could also be considered as increasing endless summer strength. When Feng Shuang saw that Lin Yuan did not assign any missions to her and old he, she quickly flipped her hair and went forward to ask, "My lord, what should we do next? Please enlighten me. Old he and I will definitely do our best to complete the mission sir has given us." Feng Shuang kept using her body movements to express her enthusiasm and determination as she spoke. Previously, when Lin Yuan had appointed Hu Tian as the manager of the trio, Feng Shuang had been rather dissatisfied. Now Hu Tian was left in the underground palace of the Divine Wood Federation. Feng Shuang felt that this was a good opportunity for her to perform. From Feng Shuang's point of view, compared to old he who was not good with words, he was much better. The possibility of him obtaining Lin Yuan's favor was higher. Upon hearing Feng Shuang's question, Lin Yuan did not tell her what he was going to do in the swamp world. Instead, he waved at the nearby sky killer butterfly. Upon seeing Lin Yuan summon it, the slaughter sky butterfly arrived beside him in an instant. Lin Yuan introduced the butcher sky butterfly to Feng Shuang and old he and said to them, "You two listen to her arrangements. Do whatever she tells you to do." Chapter 12:16. After speaking to Feng Shuang and old he, Lin Yuan said to the slaughtering sky butterfly, "Let's go. The person I've arranged outside the cultivation room is also at the overlord tier. If there are any dangerous situations, you can arrange for him to handle it. I've accumulated quite a lot of heavenly maiden level earth elemental pearls. It should be enough for you to recover from your injuries." As he spoke, he took out a wooden box and placed it at the slaughter sky butterfly's feet. Lin Yuan waved his hand, and a large number of earth-type heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls poured into the wooden chest. It almost filled the wooden chest. Then he bent down and rummaged through the wooden box. Soon he picked up a few earth-type heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. In the process of searching, Lin Yuan did not find the earth-type heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl that contained the heavenly maiden germination. Feng Shuang and old he fell into a daze as they looked at the wooden crate full of heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. The two asked the three questions of poverty at the same time. Since when were heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls counted by boxes? How much did this chest of heavenly maiden-grade earth elemental pearls cost? How many heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls did Lin Yuan have? The killer butterfly, which had seen Lin Yuan take out more heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls, was only slightly startled before returning to normal. After looking at Lu Yenshan, who was shrouded in a black robe in front of the breeding room, the slaughter sky butterfly said to Lin Yuan in a warm voice, "With these elemental pearls, I can advance from Lord Tier 10 to Monarch Tier in less than a week. Leave everything in the swamp world to me. If anything happens, I'll let Purple Firmament inform you." The butchering sky butterfly was very happy when it said this to Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan had just said, "Let the Emperor-class experts in front of the breeding room handle dangerous things." Wasn't this the same as saying that Lin Yuan was concerned about her? Zi Xiao treated Lin Yuan as her father. Wouldn't that make Lin Yuan his father-in-law? It felt good to be cared for by the old man. Lin Yuan had always been low-key. The reason why he flaunted his wealth like that just now was to show off his muscles to Feng Shuang and old he again. Let the two of them put away all the thoughts they should not have and understand that only by following him will they have a bright future. Lin Yuan had previously slapped Feng Shuang and old he, and now he was flexing his muscles. In order to let Feng Shuang and Lao He work hard wholeheartedly, he naturally had to give them some benefits at the right time. Thus, he handed the 2 pots of golden lotus brocade beads to Feng Shuang and old he. She saw the 2 pots of golden lotus brocade beads in Lin Yuan's hands. Feng Shuang and old he couldn't help but exclaim, "Golden lotus pearl. It's actually the golden lotus brocade pearl." It could be said that all of the Radiance Federation's top factions were calculating how to obtain the golden lotus brocade pearl from the Moon Empress. As members of the Zheng family, Feng Shuang and old he were not qualified to know about the golden lotus pearl. However, Zheng Kaiyuan wanted Zheng Ji, the patriarch of the Zheng family, to allow the Zheng family to engage in a blood oath duel with Sky City. Among them, there was a lot of flattery in the Zheng clan, and among them, there was the mention of the golden lotus pearl. Feng Shuang and old he had long coveted such a creation master's sacred relic. Feng Shuang and Lao He were shocked, but they were also puzzled. Didn't the golden lotus brocade pearl belong to the Moon Empress? How could Sky City be related to the Moon Empress? He could actually obtain the golden lotus pearl. Since Lin Yuan had extra golden lotus brocade pearls for them to use, it meant that he definitely had a lot of golden lotus brocade pearls. Otherwise, with so many creation master resources in Sky City, how could the golden lotus brocade pearl fall into the hands of the two Jing family's captives? Upon seeing Feng Shuang and Old He's bewildered expressions after calling out the golden lotus brocade beads, Lin Yuan did not pay much attention to them. It was almost impossible for the two of them to leave the swamp world. Even if he guessed some secrets, he did not need to worry. This was because the two of them couldn't find anyone to share their secrets within the swamp world. Lin Yuan had given Feng Shuang and Old He the golden lotus brocade pearls for a reason. The golden lotus brocade beads could effectively increase the speed and success rate of Feng Shuang and Lao He's concoction process. It was the same as increasing his creation master resources. After arranging everything in the swamp world, he left the Spirit Lock spatial zone through the Klein Hub. There was a time difference between the Agro continent and the Radiance continent, and there wasn't much time left before the Celestial Council would convene. After leaving the tent, Lin Yuan asked Hu Quan if he was preparing to return to the Radiance Federation. Soon, Hu Quan gave a negative answer and only asked Lin Yuan to bring a few more spirit craftsmen the next time he came back. Otherwise, he really didn't know how long it would take to build the underground palace with just these 5 spirit craftsmen. Lin Yuan stored Lu Jie in the treasure artifact made of the treasure cave golden toad skin and stomach sac and went all the way to the depths of the underground palace. With the consumption of a large number of spatial crystals, Lin Yuan successfully returned to the return from faraway manor through the spatial tunnel. After the long-distance teleportation, Lin Yuan fell to the ground like before, feeling dizzy for a full 5 minutes. After the dizziness subsided, Lin Yuan stood up with a bitter smile and shook his head. It seems that I have to endure this long-distance teleportation often in the future. Lin Yuan, who was in the return from faraway manor's underground space, released Lu Jie from the treasure artifact made of the treasure cave golden toad skin and stomach sac and left the underground space with him. There was a sun reflection king lotus every 100 steps in the underground space, so the underground space's environment was always bright as day. After leaving the underground space, Lin Yuan found that the Radiance Federation's sun had just risen from the east. The darkness had not completely dissipated. It was dawn. Lu Jie breathed in the air of the Radiance dawn and stretched his back. When you, the mother of Bloodbath, and the others haven't eaten my cooking for 2 days. I wonder if they miss my cooking. It's still early, so I won't return to the main residence. I plan to first go to the spirit material market and buy 3 gold rank bighead carps. I'll make a pot of fish balls with white flour and add some white pepper. The mother of Bloodbath loves to eat chicken wings. It just so happens that I'll buy some chicken wings to roast. After eating the fish balls, the white noodle chicken wings will be ready too. Upon hearing Lu Jie's words, Lin Yuan felt his saliva begin to secrete more and more. Lin Yuan secretly swallowed his saliva and said to Lu Jie, "Brother Lu, don't mention the other people in the manor. Even though I've been by your side for the past 2 days, I didn't get to taste your cooking. I really want to improve your skills." While Lu Jie went to buy fresh spiritual ingredients, Lin Yuan returned to the main residence. As soon as Lin Yuan returned to the main mansion, he saw Wen Yu sitting on the water rhinoceros leather sofa and sorting out stacks of information. His eyes were red, and it was obvious that he hadn't slept the entire night. Wen Yu raised her head abruptly when she heard the noise coming from the door. Upon seeing Lin Yuan at the main mansion's entrance, Wen Yu's face immediately revealed a look of pleasant surprise and relief. Wen Yu hurriedly handed a stack of documents to Lin Yuan and said, "That's right. Young master, in the 2 days that you were gone, many things happened in the capital. The Miao family has initiated a blood oath battle with the Ocean Tribe of Bliss, seeking monthly votes." End of chapter. Chapter 12:17. While speaking, Wen Yu yawned and rubbed her eyes. Obviously, she was very tired after a night of not sleeping. She could not help but mutter, "The Beast Creation Garden just lost 2 veteran Emperor-class experts in the blood oath battle with the Zheng family. The smart thing to do now is to lay low and not cause trouble." The Beast Creation Garden just lost 2 Emperor-level figures because of the blood oath battle between the Zheng family and Sky City. The smart thing to do now is to lay low and not cause trouble. But why does the Beast Creation Garden look like it wants to take the initiative to get involved in the trouble? I wonder what kind of trouble it is. In these troubled times, everyone's eyes are on the Beast Creation Garden, waiting for it to give an explanation. But why does the Beast Creation Garden look like it wants to get involved in the trouble? I wonder what it is doing. Could it be that the loss of two veteran Emperor-class experts is nothing to the Beast Creation Garden? The Blissful Ocean Clan's current situation was definitely related to him. He did not know if the Blissful Ocean Clan was stupid to not investigate the situation when there was a shortage of Aurora pollen in the market. They found out that Sky City and Dew Immortal Garden had worked together. Instead, they pushed the blame on the Meow family's Beast Creation Garden. As a veteran faction, the Blissful Ocean Clan had been causing trouble for the Beast Creation Garden. The Blissful Ocean Clan had repeatedly used this matter to poke at the Beast Creation Garden's sore spot after losing two Emperor-class experts in the Beast Creation Garden. Being targeted by a veteran faction, the Beast Creation Garden had lost a lot of face. When he had gone to the Beast Creation Garden previously, he had used law crystals to help the Beast Creation Garden create 7 new Emperor-class experts. The addition of Emperor-class experts would definitely make the Beast Creation Garden eager to show off its strength to suppress the negative public opinion. Therefore, the Beast Creation Garden, which should have been well-behaved, chose to fight the Blissful Ocean Clan head-on. They used the Blissful Ocean Clan to show their might again. Miao Jinshan was the family head of the Miao family, and he could not personally participate in the Blood Oath battle with the Blissful Ocean Clan. If the family had participated in the Blood Oath battle, it would seem that the Miao family had no one else to use. It would make the other top factions look down on the Miao family. It was the same for the female Emperor-class expert who was in charge of the treasury. Therefore, the Miao family would most likely send a new Emperor-level expert to participate in the Blood Oath battle against the Blissful Sea tribe. Lin Yuan did not tell Wen Yu that he had gone to the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden. Hence, even if Wen Yu had extremely good strategic foresight, she could not tell what the Miao family was trying to do. Thus, Lin Yuan explained to her. The Beast Creation Garden must have something to rely on for making such a big fuss at such a time. Not long ago, the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden made a deal with me and obtained a few rule crystals from me. Through these nomological crystals, the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden gained a total of 7 new Emperor-level powerhouses. Under the whirlpool of public opinion, the Miao family's reputation will be tarnished for helping the Zheng family with the Blood Oath duel. On the contrary, the 9 Emperor-level combatants of the Miao family are enough to make the other top forces realize the power of the Beast Creation Garden and want to cooperate with it. It looks like this move against the Blissful Ocean Clan has solved the Miao family's predicament. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Wen Yu's eyes suddenly widened. Only God knew how surprised she had been when she had heard that the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden had applied for the Blood Oath duel against the Blissful Ocean Clan. It turned out that the mastermind behind all this was Lin Yuan, who had gone to the Divine Wood Federation to train. Although her young master was not in the Radiance Federation, he had single-handedly created the Radiance Federation's big news. The Miao family's Beast Creation Garden and Sky City were mortal enemies. Wen Yu did not believe that Lin Yuan would stop after giving the Miao family 7 more Emperor-level combatants. This was not in line with Lin Yuan's character at all. Wen Yu pondered for a moment, and her eyes suddenly lit up. Wen Yu asked Lin Yuan, "Young master, the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden helped the Zheng family in the Blood Oath duel with Sky City. Although the Miao family lost their Emperor-level experts, they never gave Sky City an explanation. Do you want to help the Blissful Ocean Clan in the Blood Oath duel with the Miao family?" Upon hearing Wen Yu's words, Lin Yuan revealed a smile. He and Wen Yu's thoughts were quite in sync. It could be said that when Lin Yuan heard that the Beast Creation Garden had applied to carry out the Blood Oath duel with the Blissful Ocean Clan, he immediately had such an idea. Lin Yuan had increased the number of Emperor-level experts in the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden so that he could obtain world crystals from their phase. The Blood Oath duel initiated by the Miao family was a good opportunity for him to obtain world crystals. With the Miao family helping the Zheng family in the Beast Creation Garden, Sky City would not be affected by public opinion now that it was helping the Blissful Ocean Clan against the Beast Creation Garden. Instead, it would let the other factions understand that Sky City was a faction that would take revenge. As the Sky City Lord, he could also obtain more power of faith through this matter. Of course, Sky City was not helping the Blissful Ocean Clan for nothing. The Blissful Ocean Clan dared to go against the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden because of the lack of Aurora pollen. The large number of angelfish of bliss dying had stimulated the Blissful Ocean Clan's emotions. This kind of loss could be seen every second and it was easy to make people mad. However, when their lives were in the hands of others, the Blissful Ocean tribe who could not compete with the Beast Creation Garden, would definitely be afraid. At this moment, the Blissful Sea tribe was as anxious as ants on a hot pan, trying to find a way out. We don't have to contact the blissful ocean tribe for now. The Miao family's beast creation garden has lost 2 veteran emperors, but the family head, Miao Jinshan, is still around. The Miao family still has the highest combat power in the beast creation garden. The other top forces dare to oppress the beast creation garden in terms of economy and resources, but they will not be willing to help the blissful ocean tribe and the Miao family fight the beast creation garden head-on. If the Sea of Bliss tribe can't get what they want, they will definitely turn their attention to Sky City, which has a grudge against the beast creation garden. Let's just quietly wait for the blissful sea tribe to come to us. Wenyu replied immediately. Young master, after the celestial body meeting, I'll head to Star Web Sky City's private territory and wait for the blissful sea clan to come knocking on my door. Upon hearing Wenyu's words, Lin Yuan shook his head. Big brother Lu is going to buy fresh ingredients. He said he's going to make fish balls and white noodles when he comes back. You stayed up all night. After eating the fish balls and white noodles, have a good sleep. We'll convene the celestial body meeting after you wake up. The celestial body meeting will continuously consume your spiritual energy, and it'll be too much of a burden on your body if you're in a state of fatigue. Wenyu smiled sweetly when she heard Lin Yuan's words. Young master, wake me up if I don't wake up before 1 in the afternoon. When a person has something on his mind, he won't be able to sleep well. If Zoel Irin wakes up because of me, she won't be able to enter the celestial body meeting. Then our losses will be huge. End of this chapter. Chapter 12-18. During the previous Celestial Council meeting, Wenyu, as the owner of the Celestial Council, had also checked Suil Irin's memories. Therefore Wenyu valued Su Irin very much. After all, a Dark Envoy who could control the entire Dark Continent was in a situation where the entire Dark Continent had fallen. He was even more important than Yin Lin, the Azure Envoy. The Azure Federation, one of the 3 great federations, was behind Yin Lin. However, as the 4th Azure Envoy of the Azure Federation, Yin Lin could not decide the fate of the Azure Federation. Zoel was a Dark Envoy elected by the 7 federations of the Dark Continent. Now that the Dark Continent had fallen, if Su Irin revealed her identity, the Dark Continent would be destroyed. He would have the right to rule the Dark Continent. In Wenyu's eyes, Su Irin was equivalent to the entire Dark Continent. Wenyu's long-term strategic vision allowed her to understand the importance of being able to legitimately control a continent. Afraid of wasting time, Wenyu didn't wait to eat the fish ball white noodles. Instead, she went back to her room to catch up on her sleep. After Lu Jie returned to cook, only Lin Yuan, the mother of Bloodbath, and Lu Jie were left at the table. As he listened, Zhou Luo was busy handing over to Zheng Kaiyan and collecting the Zheng family's luxury goods resources. He had already set off for Indigo Azure City. Endless Summer protected Zhou Luo and listened along the way. Duan he brought the white-clothed followers to train outside, while Hu Quan built an underground palace in the Divine Wood Federation. Chu Xi was also improving her strength along with Zhang Yu. Therefore it was very difficult to gather everyone in the manor. After eating, Lin Yuan gave the Fey storage box containing the ripened blood brew grapes to the mother of Bloodbath again. There was even a large pile of old leaves that had fallen from the blood brew grapevine. The mother of Bloodbath naturally took the Fey storage box that Lin Yuan handed over. The mother of Bloodbath could not help but ask Lin Yuan when it saw that the Fey storage box had several times more blood brew grapes than usual. Lin Yuan, how many blood brew grapevines do you have? Your blood brew grapes are growing way too fast. Upon hearing the mother of Bloodbath's praise, Lin Yuan smiled slightly. This was naturally thanks to Red Thorn, which had been upgraded to Fantasy V after awakening. The increase in Red Thorn's quality had significantly increased the blood energy contained in the Eye of Relinquish. Red Thorn now had 3 mouths of Relinquish. The number of eyes of Relinquish increased by 3 times. Furthermore, Red Thorn's speed of condensing the Eye of Relinquish was much faster than before. As a result, the blood brew grapevine's growth rate had increased exponentially along with Red Thorn's Eye of Relinquish. Mother of Bloodbath, I will provide you with blood brew grapes faster in the future. You should be able to advance to Myth 3 soon, right? As he spoke, he recalled the 500 stalks of nightmare spirit peonies that he had cultivated in the Pure Land of Bliss in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Lin Yuan was nurturing so many nightmare spirit peonies for his master, the Moon Empress. On the other hand, it was for the mother of Bloodbath. The consumption of pure spirit chi for Grey to evolve into a favored spirit had taught him to make early preparations. The flowers of the spirit-containing peony could be stored after they were filled with spiritual energy. Storing more pure spirit chi that could be used at any time would allow him to not be overwhelmed when he needed a large amount of pure spirit chi. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the mother of Bloodbath stood up. Lin Yuan, I know that I'm very weak now and can't bear the responsibility of a path protector. But after thinking about it, I still decided to go with you to the Divine Wood Federation. Since the mother of Bloodbath was born, it could be said that the days it had lived in the Return from Faraway Manor were the most exciting days of its life. It was Lin Yuan who had let the mother of Bloodbath know that a living fae could not only increase its strength, could also have feelings. The youth that needed its guidance and protection in Millstone Town had grown to the point where he no longer needed its protection. However, the mother of Bloodbath still wanted to experience the days of becoming a small spider and relying on Lin Yuan to adventure and train together. Lin Yuan naturally would not refuse the mother of Bloodbath's request. In any case, when the mother of Bloodbath advanced to Myth 3, Lin Yuan planned to bring it to the Divine Wood Federation to undergo world cleansing. He wanted to see if it could awaken the celestial Corona Jade Spider bloodline and transform into a favored spirit. After the mother of Bloodbath left with the blood brew grapes, Lin Yuan returned to the underground space. On the underground space's walls, which were filled with floating silver threads, he cut off a small section of the floating silver thread that was left on the outside of the wall. Before leaving the Divine Wood Federation, Lin Yuan had asked Hu Quan if there were any more floating silver threads there. In the end, Hu Quan said that apart from making the Fey carriage, all the floating silver threads were buried in the underground space's walls. Upon hearing Hu Quan's answer, Lin Yuan naturally had the idea of making the Fey carriage. Hu Quan had invested a lot of effort into this Fey carriage. Therefore he did not want Lin Yuan to destroy the half-built Fey carriage. He took out the floating silver threads from the body of the Fey carriage. Thus, Hu Quan told Lin Yuan that when building the underground space's walls, in order to prevent them from being attacked, the walls would be deformed. He had deliberately left an extra section of floating silver threads. The small amount of floating silver thread that was left outside of the underground space was more than enough. Lin Yuan did not need much floating silver threads. He just needed a little to make the gnome contract it. After cutting the floating silver threads, Lin Yuan's phone rang. He picked up the phone and found that the person calling him was Sun Ningxiang. Lin Yuan, who picked up the phone, thought that Sun Ningxiang was going to talk about the aurora pollen. He did not expect Sun Ningxiang to be sobbing on the other end of the phone. After he picked up the phone, Sun Ningxiang felt as though she was grasping at a life-saving straw. She sobbed even more violently. Lin Yuan might have experienced a lot of storms and waves. However, he really did not have any experience in dealing with a girl crying on the phone. All of a sudden Lin Yuan recalled that when Sun Ningxiang had first established a cooperation with him, she had asked him for the legend muscle-growing camellia. She had said it was for her grandmother's healing. After the incident in the Dew Immortal Garden, there were only 3 direct descendants. For Sun Ningxiang to be so sad, either something had happened to her grandmother or her younger brother was in danger. However, Lin Yuan felt that it was more likely that something had happened to Sun Ningxiang's grandmother. Sun Ningxiang's younger brother was so young that he was not suitable to contract Fays. As long as he was nurtured carefully, it was impossible for him to encounter any danger. Sure enough, Lin Yuan heard Sun Ningxiang's anxious and helpless voice. Lin Yuan, I beg you, can you help me contact the Moon Empress? My grandmother is dying. Sun Ningxiang's anxious and helpless voice was mixed with sobs, causing Lin Yuan's heart to tighten. Lin Yuan hurriedly said, Don't be anxious. Don't rush. Tell me slowly. Let me know how your grandmother is doing. End of this chapter. Chapter 12-19. Sun Ningxiang didn't know how to answer Lin Yuan's question. Sun Ningxiang didn't know how many internal injuries her grandmother had suffered in that conflict. Sun Ningxiang had asked her grandmother, but she didn't tell her. She was obviously afraid that she would worry. Just as Sun Ningxiang was having a meal with her grandmother, Sun Ningxiang saw her grandmother's eyes suddenly turn turbid, and she vomited 2 mouthfuls of rotten blood before fainting. Sun Ningxiang's heart was in a mess. Sun Ningxiang wasn't a creation master or a healing-type spirit chi professional. With her ability, she couldn't find out what was wrong with her grandmother. Sun Ningxiang didn't dare to look for the Sun family's creation masters and healing-type spirit chi professionals to check the situation. Firstly, after that incident, the Sun family's strongest creation master was only at the pinnacle of Class 3. Secondly, Sun Ningxiang couldn't let anyone in the Dew Immortal Garden know that her grandmother had fainted. Sun Ningxiang had always been the controller of the Dew Immortal Garden. However, her grandmother was the true stabilizing force of the Du Immortal Garden. Without her emperor-class strength to deter the Miao family, the Beast Creation Garden would have long made a move on the Sun family. Even the other people in the Du Immortal Garden might have evil thoughts because of the lack of restrictions. Previously, with a huge investment of resources, Sun Ningxiang had looked for a Class 4 Creation Master and an Emperor-class healer to check on her grandmother's condition. In the end, the Class 4 Creation Master and the Emperor-class healer were helpless. After watching her grandmother fainting and losing her composure, Sun Ningxiang suddenly thought of Lin Yuan. Only the Moon Empress, who was behind Lin Yuan, could be her grandmother's savior. Sun Ningxiang and Lin Yuan had a bit of a personal relationship. However, Sun Ningxiang's words were absolutely abrupt. It could even be said to be overstepping her authority. However, Sun Ningxiang had no other choice. For the sake of her grandmother and the Du Immortal Garden's future, Sun Ningxiang could only beg Lin Yuan and had to beg him. It could be said that Lin Yuan's answer was equivalent to deciding the outcome of the Du Immortal Garden and her grandmother. When Lin Yuan saw that Sun Ningxiang couldn't explain the situation clearly, he changed the topic and asked, "Your grandmother should have a contracted fei, right? Your grandmother should have a contracted fei, right? Is there any contracted fei outside when she is unconscious? If there is, you can ask that fei. That fei must be aware of your grandmother's current situation." Hearing this, Sun Ningxiang's whimpering suddenly became louder. Grandma's feis were originally summoned, but when Grandma fainted and vomited black rotten blood, they automatically returned to the spiritual spatial zone. Lin Yuan, what the hell is going on? Lin Yuan's brows furrowed tightly. After a spirit chi professional fainted, the phase wouldn't automatically return to the spiritual spatial zone. There are two reasons for this. Otherwise, it would be a spirit chi professional's initiative before they fainted. Either the spirit chi professional was on the verge of death, and the fei was forced to return to the spiritual spatial zone due to the contract. Such a situation was called seclusion by creation masters. If Sun Ningxiang's grandmother really went into seclusion, it would be troublesome. Spirit chi professionals in seclusion usually couldn't live for more than 6 hours. In other words, he would let Sun Ningxiang bring her grandmother to the capital while he investigated the situation. If he couldn't resolve it by himself, then going to the Leaning Moon Mountain to seek help from his master, the Moon Empress, was no longer feasible. However, it wasn't realistic for him to inform the Moon Empress and ask her to make a trip. Just now, Lin Yuan had just called the Moon Empress. The call was picked up by Mystic Moon, who said that her master was in seclusion. Lin Yuan originally planned to visit the Moon Empress in the Radiant Moon Palace in the afternoon. In the end, Lin Yuan had no choice but to wait for the Moon Empress to come out of seclusion and contact him. At such a critical juncture, the truth might be hard to accept. However, Lin Yuan had no choice but to tell Sun Ningxiang his judgment. "Have you heard of seclusion?" Lin Yuan's words caused Sun Ningxiang to fall on the thick cashmere carpet. Even though Sun Ningxiang wasn't a creation master, she had heard of seclusion before. When Sun Ningxiang had called Lin Yuan, she had still held a trace of hope. Now that the word seclusion had spoken, it had shattered the remaining hope in Sun Ningxiang's heart. Just as Sun Ningxiang was in despair and had forgotten that she was calling Lin Yuan's clear and pleasant voice echoed from the other end. "Fortunately, you called me when your grandmother fainted. My master, the Moon Empress, is in seclusion, but I have a Moon Dew Revival pill here. The Moon Dew Revival pill should be able to resolve your grandmother's situation. Your grandmother's situation is too serious, and the Moon Dew Revival pill can't resolve it. It should be enough for your grandmother to wake up and come to the royal capital for treatment." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Sun Ningxiang was stunned. How could Sun Ningxiang not have heard of the Moon Dew Revival pill, which was a sacred item that only the Moon Empress had? The Moon Dew Revival pill was said to be a divine medicine that could pull a person back from the Yellow Springs Road as long as they still had a breath left. It had a true resurrection effect. 10 years ago, the Spacetime Elder, who had been in charge of Ostrich Logistics, had fallen into a near-death state during the collision with the Freedom Federation's experts. Back then, Ostrich Logistics Emperor-class healers had been helpless. As a result, the Moon Empress had given Ostrich Logistics a sacred medicine called the Moon Dew Revival Pill at the critical moment. It was rumored that the Moon Dew Revival Pill was concocted with the tears of the Weeping Moon Sacred Beast and close to 1,000 kinds of rare spiritual ingredients. It even used the Silver Stamen Gold Luster Cassius tree sap as a medicinal catalyst. It was this Moon Dew Revival pill that had brought the Spacetime Elder back from the dead and saved the Radiance Federation from the possibility of death. This Moon Dew Revival pill had also facilitated the close relationship between the Radiance Moon Palace and Ostrich Logistics for over a decade. Since then, it was unknown how many top factions had tried to obtain the Moon Dew Revival pill from the Moon Empress. There were only a few factions that could obtain the Moon Dew Revival pill from the Moon Empress. Even when the Iron Prison Lord had asked for the Moon Dew Revival pill from the Moon Empress, he had been rejected and chased out of the Radiance Moon Palace by the Moon Empress. Because of this matter, the Moon Dew Revival pill had another title, something that even the Iron Prison Lord wasn't fit to use. After Sun Ningxiang found out that her grandmother was in seclusion, she felt as though her soul had been sucked out. Blossoming Flower City was next to Redbud City and was extremely far from the royal capital. Even if Lin Yuan had helped her contact the Moon Empress and used her connections, there would not be enough time for her to bring her grandmother to the royal capital. However, Sun Ningxiang did not expect Lin Yuan to have the Moon Dew Revival pill. Furthermore, Lin Yuan was willing to use a sacred item like the Moon Dew Revival pill to save her grandmother. 166 Reading Network. Chapter 12:20. During Lin Yuan's promise to deliver the Moon Dew Revival pills, he didn't say anything else. This meant that Lin Yuan wasn't helping her because he wanted to obtain anything from her. Furthermore, as the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan didn't have anything worthy of his attention. A warm current flowed from the bottom of Sun Ningxiang's heart into her eyes, turning her eyes into a tap. While tears were gushing out of her eyes, Sun Ningxiang was filled with gratitude, cherishing, rejoicing, and fear. The more she wanted to express her gratitude to Lin Yuan, the more she couldn't open her mouth. At that moment, Sun Ningxiang heard Lin Yuan say, "I'll hang up first. I'll hang up first. I'll call you later." Spirit Chi professionals in seclusion can usually last 5 to 6 hours. But your grandmother has other internal injuries, and she might not be able to last 5 hours. I'll contact Ostrich Logistics now and ask them to speed up the delivery. I'll try to deliver the Moon Dew Revival pills to you within 2 hours. Just as Lin Yuan finished speaking, Sun Ningxiang heard the busy tone on the other end of the phone. Lin Yuan's anxious tone warmed the tearful Sun Ningxiang's heart again. This warmth made Sun Ningxiang's tightly pursed lips subconsciously raise into a slight arc. Lin Yuan hung up the phone and immediately contacted his exclusive courier, Aneng. After explaining the situation, Aneng promised to rush to the entrance of Lin Yuan's mansion within 10 minutes. She would deliver the goods that Lin Yuan had prepared to Fragrance City to Sun Ningxiang within 1.5 hours. After contacting Aneng, Lin Yuan quickly walked toward the mansion's entrance. In less than 3 minutes after Lin Yuan arrived at the manor's entrance, Aneng rushed over. Aneng was wearing Ostrich Logistics work clothes. When she saw Lin Yuan, she took off the hat on her head with a smile. She held the hat and waved at Lin Yuan. Aneng's reddish-purple short hair fluttered under the afternoon sun, giving her a lively and handsome feeling. Even though Aneng still looked like a newbie, he still had the appearance of a newbie. But during this half a year, Aneng would occasionally leave the delivery order with Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan's delivery had never made a single mistake in Aneng's hands. At that moment, Lin Yuan solemnly told Aneng about the urgency of the goods. Upon hearing that, Aneng took the express delivery from Lin Yuan's hand and took a look at the order number before snapping her fingers. A sparkling silver shell appeared in Aneng's hand. Aneng read the information on the order to the shell. The shell directly tore open a crack in the space in front of Aneng. Aneng waved at Lin Yuan again and stepped into the rift, vanishing in front of him. Previously, when Aneng was delivering the parcels, she would leave Lin Yuan's line of sight before teleporting. This was also a rule of Ostrich Logistics. However, when Aneng heard that the situation was urgent, she couldn't be bothered about Ostrich Logistics rules. This was the first time Lin Yuan saw Ostrich Logistics reliance that could reach the entire Radiance Federation within 3 hours. According to the information he received from his master, the Moon Empress, Lin Yuan knew that Ostrich Logistics' ability could not be imitated by other factions. This was because the spatial crystal shellfish used by all Ostrich Logistics couriers was considered a function of the Spacetime Elder's sacred source, the Spatial Mother Shellfish. After completing the mailing of the Dew Revival pills, Lin Yuan naturally called Sun Ningxiang again. After picking up the call, Lin Yuan said softly, "The Dew Revival pills have been mailed. The Dew Revival pills have been mailed out now. You should be able to receive the Dew Revival pills within 1.5 hours. Don't worry. Upon hearing Sun Ningxiang's continuous sobbing on the other end of the phone, Lin Yuan comforted her. Don't cry. Otherwise, when your grandmother wakes up and sees you crying, she will be worried about you. As soon as Lin Yuan finished comforting Sun Ningxiang, he found that she was crying even harder than before. The louder crying from the other end of the phone made Lin Yuan's hand numb. Lin Yuan reached out and scratched the back of his head. He was almost bald, but he couldn't think of how to comfort Sun Ningxiang. No matter how many times he tried, Lin Yuan would only say, "Don't worry." Sun Ningxiang was the lineal daughter of a top faction, the Du Immortal Garden, and had long been the head of the Du Immortal Garden. She naturally understood that emotions could not be easily revealed. For the past few years, Sun Ningxiang had been supporting the Du Immortal Garden alone, and the operation of the Du Immortal Garden had put her under tremendous pressure at all times. Only after meeting Lin Yuan did the Du Immortal Garden's situation improve. It was also the muscle-revitalizing camellia in Lin Yuan's hand that gave Sun Ningxiang hope to cure her grandmother. During the Nix conference, Sun Ningxiang had been targeted by Miao Zhuo, and the people from the other factions had been watching as a joke. Just as Sun Ningxiang had gritted her teeth and didn't know how to deal with it, Lin Yuan had stood behind her. Now, Lin Yuan had selflessly given her a Du Revival pill, which was equivalent to saving her grandmother's life. It had also saved the entire Du Immortal Garden. Lin Yuan made Sun Ningxiang feel like she could rely on him. Therefore, Sun Ningxiang would cry unscrupulously to vent her emotions in front of Lin Yuan. At that moment, Sun Ningxiang, who was completely defenseless, completely opened her heart to Lin Yuan. Sun Ningxiang felt that thanks could no longer express anything for Lin Yuan's great help. If it were not for Lin Yuan's Du Revival pill, even if the other top factions found out that she had a personal relationship with Lin Yuan at the Nix conference after her grandmother's death, they would definitely not let go of the Du Immortal Garden, which had the scale of a top faction but no emperor-class experts. Sun Ningxiang looked at the unconscious grandmother beside her and secretly made a decision. Sun Ningxiang planned to wait for her grandmother to eat the Du Revival pill and wake up before directly suggesting to her that the Du Immortal Garden should attach itself to Sky City. It would become a branch faction under Sky City's command. Sun Ningxiang felt that this was the only way to be worthy of Lin Yuan's kindness to her and the Du Immortal Garden. As she listened to Lin Yuan's clumsy consolation on the other end of the phone, a very unfamiliar feeling appeared in Sun Ningxiang's heart. This unfamiliar feeling was like fireflies dancing in the sky in midsummer in August, romantic and colorful but full of twists and turns. The fireflies gathered and scattered like flowers in the mirror and the moon in the water, beautiful like a dream. Sun Ningxiang was like a fanatic holding a small fan to pounce on fireflies. The more she pounced, the more fireflies with a certain shadow engraved on them were pounced into her dream. Sun Ningxiang's thoughts were myriad, but Lin Yuan did not feel that there was anything wrong. Lin Yuan regarded Sun Ningxiang as a friend, and when a friend was in trouble, he naturally had to help. Not only Sun Ningxiang but Long Tao, Li Xian, Zhongzhe, Gulang and Gao Feng also looked for Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan would also help. 166 Reading Network. Chapter 1221. Lin Yuan only hoped that nothing unexpected would happen. Sun Ningxiang's grandmother would also recover immediately after eating the Moon Du Revival pill. Sun Ningxiang's emotions were unstable, and it was not appropriate for Lin Yuan to hang up the phone and leave Sun Ningxiang here. Lin Yuan decided to wait for Aneng to send the Moon Du Revival pill over. He would accompany Sun Ningxiang to check on her grandmother's condition after eating the Moon Du Revival pill. 1.5 hours passed quickly with Lin Yuan's clumsy consolation and Sun Ningxiang's sobbing. At this time, Sun Ningxiang, who was on the other end of the phone, had already received the express delivery from Aneng. Lin Yuan told Sun Ningxiang in detail. When I first received this Moon Du Revival pill, I heard from Uncle Mystic that it contains the Moon Cry's sacred beast's tears. Therefore, the Moon Du Revival pill cannot be consumed with water. At the same time, when the Moon Du Revival pill is stained with human energy, the Moon Cry's sacred beast's tears will quickly turn into liquid. Therefore, when you take the Moon Du Revival pill out of the cold jade porcelain bottle, don't touch it directly with your hands. Sun Ning looked at the Moon Du Revival pill that had arrived in time and heard Lin Yuan's instructions. Even if Sun Ning decided not to thank Lin Yuan verbally, he would thank Lin Yuan with his actions. She still could not help but thank him. Sun Ningxiang's thank you was very heavy and dull. This thank you contained too much of Sun Ningxiang's emotions. Upon hearing Sun Ningxiang's thank you, Lin Yuan quickly said, "You're welcome. There's no need to stand on ceremony." Let's take a look at the Lunar Dew Recovery Pill. Soon, Sun Ningxiang followed Lin Yuan's instructions and fed the Moon Dew Revival Pill to her grandmother. When feeding the pill, Sun Ningxiang suddenly realized that her grandmother's body was already slightly stiff. The wounds on her body were also rapidly rotting and black-red pus flowed out. If not for the fact that her grandmother's pulse was still slightly beating, Sun Ningxiang almost thought that her grandmother was already dead. It could be said that she was really on her deathbed. If Lin Yuan had not specially emphasized for the express delivery person to speed up, or if he had not hung up the phone and sent the Moon Dew Revival Pill, her grandmother would not have been able to enjoy it. Even if the Moon Dew Revival Pill was sent over, her grandmother would not be able to enjoy it. The moment she fed the Moon Dew Revival Pill to her grandmother, Sun Ningxiang felt very apprehensive. The Lunar Dew Recovery Pill was a sacred medicine of the Radiant Moon Palace and had the effect of reviving the dead. But this matter concerned the life and death of her family. Sun Ningxiang's heart couldn't calm down no matter what. When the Lunar Dew Recovery Pill turned into liquid and entered her grandmother's body, Sun Ningxiang immediately held her breath. He carefully checked his grandmother's condition. At this moment, a beam of warm moonlight shot out from his grandmother's body. Under the moonlight, there were thousands of fragrances that were either elegant or fragrant. Under the effects of the Lunar Dew Rejuvenation Pill, his grandmother's dark complexion slowly turned for the better. After a while, his face regained its rosy color. Sun Ningxiang carefully untied her grandmother's old wound, which was wrapped in bandages. The old wounds that were still rotting under the bandages had already recovered. The rotten parts of the old wounds quickly melted into a putrid liquid, and new flesh grew out to quickly repair the wounds. In less than a minute, Sun Ningxiang watched helplessly as her grandmother's old wounds, which she had tried to treat for many years, healed. This scene made Sun Ningxiang extremely happy. But when the moonlight and the thousands of fragrances from her grandmother's body dissipated, Sun Ningxiang suddenly became nervous. Sun Ningxiang realized that her grandmother didn't wake up with the dissipation of the moonlight and fragrances. Upon hearing Sun Ningxiang's question, Lin Yuan smiled and said, "Your grandmother's soul should have been severely injured before, right? Based on your description, your grandmother's injuries should have recovered. Based on your description, your grandmother's injuries should have recovered. The Lunar Dew Recovery Pill has the effect of awakening the mind. Your grandmother will wake up soon." Just as Lin Yuan finished speaking, Sun Ningxiang saw her grandmother open her eyes. When Sun Ningxiang, who originally stopped crying, saw her grandmother wake up, her tears uncontrollably flowed down the corners of her eyes again. However, Sun Ningxiang was no longer sad. Her face was filled with a smile of joy. After knowing that Sun Ningxiang's grandmother had woken up, Lin Yuan consciously hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, Lin Yuan let out a breath of relief. No matter what, Sun Ningxiang's grandmother was finally pulled back from the brink of death. At Fragrance City, in the Dew Immortal Garden's old residence. After Sun Ningxiang's nanny Lu Chan woke up, her face was full of shock and disbelief. As an emperor-class expert who counted the days to live, Lu Chan was very clear about her body's condition. The moment she spat out 2 mouthfuls of black blood, Lu Chan knew that she had been forcibly dragging on the end of her lifespan. Just as Lu Chan wanted to explain the situation to Sun Ningxiang, the injuries on her soul suddenly erupted. Lu Chan didn't have time to explain to Sun Ningxiang before she fainted. When she fainted, Lu Chan's heart was full of worry and self-blame. Lu Chan was really afraid that if she died, the Dew Immortal Garden would be consigned to eternal damnation. Sun Ningxiang would also be wantonly bullied by the other top factions. Lu Chan was very regretful that after obtaining the legend muscle-growing camellia, she insisted on using its rhizome to see if it could completely remove the rotting poison in her body. If it could completely remove the rotting poison, she would not only be able to endure for another 3 to 5 years. However, when she used the muscle-growing camellia's rhizome to remove the rotting poison in her body, the rotting poison actually escaped to her brain. The injury to his soul, which he had suppressed with great difficulty, was triggered again. Under those circumstances, if Lu Chan still insisted on using the muscle-revitalizing camellia rhizome to remove the poison, she would have died. The infection of the decaying poison would definitely cause the injuries to his soul to erupt. Choosing the lesser of 2 evils. In the end, Lu Chan had no choice but to give up on guiding the medicinal power of the muscle-rejuvenating camellia to remove the poison in her body. Instead, she wanted to remove the medicinal power of the muscle-rejuvenating camellia out of her body. The leaves and stems of the legendary grade muscle-revitalizing camellia were good medicine for removing poison. However, in order to take a gamble, Lu Chan used the rhizome of the muscle revitalizing camellia, which was dozens of times more effective. The muscle revitalizing camellia that had its stem destroyed naturally lost its life. Previously, Lu Chan had been relying on the leaves and stems of the muscle revitalizing camellia to suppress the poison. Now that the life force camellia T stem was no longer able to suppress the decay poison, the decay poison that had developed a certain degree of resistance was even more ferocious. After spitting out 2 mouthfuls of black blood, Lu Chan fainted. This was because when the poison invaded the heart and lungs, it caused them to contract violently. The contraction of the heart and lungs pumped a large amount of blood containing the poison into the brain. Only then did the injury to Lu Chan's soul completely trigger. At this moment, Lu Chan woke up and touched Sun Ningxiang's head. While wiping away the tears on Sun Ningxiang's face, she was dumbstruck as she sensed the changes in her body. Her current body could be said to be completely gone. Chapter 12:22. Lu Chan discovered that the corrosive poison and wounds in her body had been healed, and her originally weak life force had been strengthened again. Moreover, for some unknown reason, the few impurities in his body had been washed out. This cleansing effect made Lu Chan immediately think of the Radiant Moon Palace's silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. At its peak, the Dew Immortal Garden had the qualifications to request a few drops of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar from the Moon Empress. However, even if the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar could cleanse the impurities in his body, it definitely couldn't heal his injuries. Lu Chan lowered her head and looked at Sun Ningxiang, who was crying like a child in her arms. His eyes were filled with kindness and love. Lu Chan was very clear about how difficult it was for Sun Ningxiang all these years. At this moment, Lu Chan couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Her granddaughter had suffered too much these years. It could be said that the pressure of the Dew Immortal Garden was completely on Sun Ningxiang. Now, not only had his body recovered, but his body, which had been cleansed of impurities, was even better than before. His granddaughter would finally no longer be tied up in the affairs of the dew-congealing Immortal Garden. Instead, he could freely choose the life he wanted to live. Right now, what Lu Chan wanted to know the most was how she recovered. There was only Sun Ningxiang beside him when he fainted. For him to have such a change, it must be related to his granddaughter, Sun Ningxiang. Xiang, what happened after I fainted? Upon hearing Lu Chan's question, Sun Ningxiang suddenly recalled that she had been on the phone with Lin Yuan. Sun Ningxiang hurriedly took the cell phone in embarrassment and realized that Lin Yuan had already hung up. Sun Ningxiang thought. Fortunately, Lin Yuan hung up the call. Otherwise, wouldn't Lin Yuan have heard my crying just now? Sun Ningxiang, who had such thoughts, didn't realize that Lin Yuan had been listening to her crying for almost 1.5 hours. During this hour, he had spent a lot of his brain cells thinking about how to coax a crying woman. Looking at Lu Chan's probing expression, Sun Ningxiang said softly, "Grandma, Lin Yuan saved you." After understanding the situation, Lin Yuan urged Ostrich Logistics to send over a Lunar Dew Revival Pill. Lu Chan's body suddenly trembled when she heard the words Lunar Dew Recovery Pill. There was only one thought in Lu Chan's mind. He had actually eaten the Moon Dew Rejuvenation Pill. No wonder he was able to recover and Qinku was gone. Compared to the secrets that Sun Ningxiang knew, Lu Chan undoubtedly knew a bit more secrets. Thus, Lu Chan understood the significance of the Lunar Dew Recovery Pill even better than Sun Ningxiang. When the dew-congealing Immortal Garden was at its peak, his old man had sacrificed all his face for it. Even with half of the Dew Immortal Garden's assets, he was not qualified to exchange for a Lunar Dew Recovery Pill from the Radiant Moon Palace. The value of a Lunar Dew Revival Pill was higher than the life of an Emperor-level expert. It was because the Moon Dew Recovery Pill was also effective against undying beings. During this period of time, Lu Chan could not remember how many times Sun Ningxiang had mentioned Lin Yuan's name. Although Lu Chan's body was so weak that she couldn't see the wind or the sun and needed to stay indoors to recuperate. However, Lu Chan knew a lot about Hui Yao's situation and naturally knew about Lin Yuan's identity as the Moon Empress disciple. Sun Ningxiang had not told Lu Chan that Sky City's City Lord and Lin Yuan were the same person. Lu Chan was very grateful to Sky City's City Lord and Lin Yuan. The cooperation between Sky City and Dew Immortal Garden had opened up the predicament of Dew Immortal Garden's lack of creation masters. It had revitalized Dew Immortal Garden's plant-fey resources. It had allowed Dew Immortal Garden to not lose its base and give up its monopoly on the market. Lin Yuan had stood behind Sun Ningxiang at the Great Night Assembly and revealed to the other factions that he was on good terms with Sun Ningxiang. After the Great Night Assembly, Du Immortal Garden would no longer dare to find trouble with them. Before the Great Night Assembly, Sun Ningxiang would always mention Sky City's City Lord when communicating with her. However, after returning from the Great Night Assembly, Sun Ningxiang would always talk about Lin Yuan instead. Even if Du Immortal Garden and Sky City had deepened their cooperation, Sun Ningxiang would still not mention Sky City's City Lord. It was as though the topic of Sky City's City Lord had been shifted to Lin Yuan. Moreover, the frequency of mentioning Lin Yuan became more and more frequent. This made Lu Chan, who was experienced, gradually realize that things were unusual. Looking at Sun Ningxiang's eyes when she mentioned Lin Yuan, Lu Chan's expression became complicated. Her granddaughter was definitely a heavenly prodigy in terms of faction development. Otherwise, she would not have been able to support Du Immortal Garden for so many years when Du Immortal Garden could not provide resources. Compared to faction management, her granddaughter's talent as a combat class spirit chi professional was much weaker. Mobile app. Even with Du Immortal Garden's massive resources, she could only reach the Radiance 100 sequence 40th to 60th at most. However, Lin Yuan was the champion of the Great Night Assembly's Civil and Martial Arena. The Great Night Assembly's Martial Arena and Civil and Martial Arena were separated. This meant that the champion of the Civil and Martial Arena couldn't be called the strongest youth creation master or the strongest youth creation master. However, the champion of the Cultural Relic Arena could definitely be called a combat class spirit chi professional and creation master all-rounder. During the battle with Chef Supreme's disciple, Zhongzhe, Lin Yuan's combat style was so special that he did not even summon his Fei. He even revealed an abnormally powerful sacred source life form that could change its form. If such a prodigy obtained the Radiant Light Medal, he would definitely become the next Radiance Envoy. Coupled with Lin Yuan's Radiant Moon Palace background, Lu Chan's granddaughter was far inferior to Lin Yuan. This gap would only grow bigger as Lin Yuan grew. Lu Chan said to Sun Ningxiang, "Grandma's body is fine now. Grandma's body is better now. Grandma can handle the matters of the Du Congealing Immortal Garden. Xiang, go and participate in this year's Radiance 100 sequence. In the future, Du Immortal Garden's resources will all pour into you. Bring along the ancient jade that can enhance willpower perception that your grandfather left for your younger brother. Try to comprehend the second willpower rune as soon as possible." Upon hearing her grandmother's words, Sun Ningxiang's eyes widened. Sun Ningxiang might not have said it, but she knew that compared to her, grandma loved her younger brother more. That ancient jade that could enhance willpower perception could be said to be the Du Immortal Garden's heirloom. That piece of ancient jade that could enhance willpower perception could be said to be the Du Immortal Garden's heirloom. How could grandma let her carry such an item casually? That piece of ancient jade was originally left for my younger brother. Before Sun Ningxiang could finish speaking, Lu Chan already spoke in a gentle voice. "Without you supporting the Du Immortal Garden, how could Hu Zi have the chance to use this ancient jade?" 166 Reading Network. Chapter 1223. There are still 2 years left before the next Radiance Envoy and Radiance Light Knight Regiment selection. Xiang, if you really have any expectations, you must work hard to rush into the Radiance Light Knight Regiment. Otherwise, you will only get further and further away from the expectations in your heart until you don't even have the qualifications to look up to them. Lu Chan did not directly expose Sun Ningxiang's maiden thoughts. Sun Ningxiang, who had just developed strange feelings, did not understand the meaning of her grandmother's words. However, in Sun Ningxiang's maiden dream, there was indeed a hazy expectation. However, compared to the expectation in her dream, Sun Ningxiang had a more important matter to tell Lu Chan. At that moment, Sun Ningxiang looked at Lu Chan with a firm gaze and said very seriously, "Grandma, I want Du Immortal Garden to merge with Sky City. Become a branch faction of Sky City." When Lu Chan heard Sun Ningxiang's words, she did not react at first. Then Lu Chan fell into deep thought. Lu Chan suddenly realized that it was Lin Yuan who had saved her with the Moon Dew Revival Elixir. However, Sun Ningxiang did not mention letting Du Immortal Garden seek shelter with Lin Yuan. Instead, she wanted Du Immortal Garden to merge with Sky City. Moreover, Lu Chan found that her granddaughter had a tendency to transfer her gratitude to Sky City's City Lord to Lin Yuan. When these two discoveries overlapped, Lu Chan's heart skipped a beat. During Du Immortal Garden's most difficult time, she had the pride of being the head of a top faction. Even if Du Immortal Garden perished with time, she was absolutely unwilling to let Du Immortal Garden become another faction's branch. This was the reason why Lu Chan had rejected the Miao family's Beast Creation Gardens cooperation. However, if Lin Yuan was Sky City's city lord, the situation would be completely different. Not to mention that Lin Yuan and Sky City's city lord were indebted to Du Immortal Garden. Lin Yuan's identity and future, as well as Sky City's creation master resources. This would allow the Du Congealing Immortal Garden to have a better future. It would also give Du Immortal Garden a chance to transcend the top factions. In addition, the determination in Sun Ningxiang's eyes and the feelings she had for Lin Yuan were also an important reason why Lu Chan was willing to compromise. Before compromising, Lu Chan asked Sun Ningxiang, "Xiang, tell me the truth. Fragrance, tell me the truth. Is Lin Yuan and the Sky City Lord the same person?" Hearing Lu Chan's affirmative tone, Sun Ningxiang hesitated for a moment before nodding. Seeing Sun Ningxiang nod, Lu Chan lovingly stroked Sun Ningxiang's hair and said, "Grandma is old. From now on, the Du Immortal Garden's decisions will be up to you. Grandma strives to live a few more years and be your solid support for a few more years. At least I didn't let down a holy item like the Lunar Dew Rejuvenation Pill." Seeing the surprised expression on Sun Ningxiang's face, Lu Chan revealed a warm smile. A new life with a smile. It was already the spring equinox. The sun of the spring equinox seemed warm, but it was the most dazzling. At this time the sun gradually climbed to the center of the sky. In the Radiance Royal Court, an old man sat on a seemingly ordinary recliner that was filled with the rhythm of life. Looking at the dazzling sun, he quietly pondered. Not only did the dazzling sunlight not make the old man avert his eyes, but it also seemed to draw something from them. The old man's black eyes were coated with a layer of gold. At that moment, a man with peach blossom eyes and smiling eyes walked in. Upon seeing the old man, the smiling man hurriedly said, "You called me over in such a hurry. You called me here in such a hurry. Is it because you're having that old problem again?" Upon hearing that, the old man shifted his gaze away from the sun. He looked at the smiling man in front of him and said, "This old man's body is very strong. This old man's body is very strong. I haven't had that old illness for 5 or 6 years." Cicada Cry, this old man sees that you have been keeping your disciple in the royal court recently. How does it feel to have a disciple? Upon hearing that, Cicada Cry could not help but rub his temples with a headache. Gao Feng is good at everything, but he is now wholeheartedly thinking about next year's tournament. He is so excited that he can't stop for a moment. Compared to improving my strength, I plan to cultivate Gao Feng's mind first. Upon hearing Cicada Cry's words, the old man was a little surprised. Cicada Cry seemed to be the most gentle person with a smiling face. However, in reality Cicada Cry was an extremely rational and indifferent person. He did not expect Cicada Cry to still be so attentive to his disciple after such a long time. The old man originally did not think that Cicada Cry would accept a disciple and was afraid that Cicada Cry would not be able to fulfill his responsibility as a master. But now it seemed like he was worrying too much. Perhaps compared to Cicada Cry bringing Gao Feng to cultivate his mind, Gao Feng's appearance was also to train Cicada Cry's heart. The old man flipped his hand, and a blazing yellow wood box appeared in his hand. Seeing that the old man took out the item, Cicada Cry quickly reached out to receive it. After receiving the blazing yellow wood box, Cicada Cry heard the old man say, "The item inside is a drop of geocentric jade milk. Send this drop of geocentric jade milk to the Moon Empress. This geocentric jade milk should be able to increase the Moon Empress lifespan by another year." Speaking up to this point, the old man's face revealed an obvious pain. The battle 10 years ago caused the 3 continents outside of the Radiance Federation to sink to the bottom of the sea forever. In that battle, 4 Freedom Federation immortals perished, but the Moon Empress attack also depleted most of her lifespan. According to the Moon Empress personality, how could she only enter seclusion for 10 years after that storm? Ever since the Moon Empress accepted a disciple, she had been paving the way for him. From this point alone, it could be seen that the Moon Empress didn't have much lifespan left. Otherwise, the Moon Empress wouldn't have chosen to pave the way, which she originally disdained the most. Only by watching her own disciple use his abilities to fight for a place in the world would it be in line with the Moon Empress' pride. At the Moon Empress level, every breakthrough would require a huge risk. Every advancement was a gamble with the heavens. To experts, lifespan had always been the most precious thing in the world. Constantly increasing one's strength could only extend one's lifespan, but it still couldn't become eternal in the world. Therefore, if people at this level wanted to increase their strength, they first had to weigh the price of failure. Could they bear it? However, the Moon Empress had been breaking through frequently in recent years. This was the Moon Empress using her own method to make a final struggle with her lifespan. When the old man's face sank into a painful expression, Cicada Cry had already left the imperial court with the box. Cicada Cry had also personally experienced that storm. When two people who experienced that storm reminisced together, it would only make each other more sad. Cicada Cry, who had stepped out of the imperial court and was heading to the Radiant Moon Palace, softly said, "I have an old friend who carried a sword and was unwilling to return even after slaying the spring. I hope that you, who are as proud as the cold moon, still have 15 years to complete what you want to do." Lin Yuan, who was teasing the orange longevity rat in the manor, was completely unaware of all this. 166 Reading Network. Chapter 1224. Lin Yuan had nothing urgent to do in the Divine Wood Federation. His master, the Moon Empress, had yet to come out of seclusion. He also needed to deal with the Blood Oath battle between the Blissful Sea clan and the Miao family. Therefore, Lin Yuan planned to deal with all the matters in the Radiance Federation first before heading to the Divine Wood Federation to train in peace. Looking at the longevity rat jumping around in his hand, Xiao Luo's eyes lit up. He felt that this longevity rat would definitely become good friends with the Moon Empress little white rabbit. Of course, the premise was that the longevity rat did not snatch the rabbit's carrot. Otherwise, the rabbit would probably hide the carrot behind its tail again. Lin Yuan had been busy opening up the Divine Wood Federation situation in the past few days and had not had a good rest. He could not help but feel a little sleepy while smelling the agarwood. Lin Yuan summoned Genius and arranged for Genius to call him at 1 p.m. He nestled on the water rhinoceros leather sofa and took a nap. While he was taking a nap, four figures in different parts of the main world also fell asleep with different moods. Download app to read books forever. Bei-Su had been very fulfilling these few days and he was also very happy. After sweeping a cursed stoneworm's work site, Bei-Su finally received subordinates. With subordinates, Bei-Su officially established his own faction. It was very difficult for ordinary people to survive in a place like the underground world. Therefore, Bei-Su was very strict in selecting subordinates. Coincidentally, someone in this cursed stoneworm nest had awakened a willpower rune. However, the awakened willpower rune was useless in the arduous work of quarrying all day long. These people, who had been engraved with the stoneworm curse mark, did not dare to tell others about their uniqueness. They were afraid that others would treat them as aliens or that the guards would treat them as threats and kill them. After obtaining the consent of these two subordinates, Bei-Su used the Sharp Shadow Dark Bat's exclusive skill, Bat Teeth Bloodline, on them. He turned these two subordinates into blood slaves. Next, Bei-Su only needed to sweep more underground dimensional rifts and find suitable source-type items for his two subordinates. This way, Bei-Su's faction's comprehensive strength would be greatly improved. From now on, Bei-Su did not need to do everything himself. This was a great progress for Bei-Su's development. Lin was riding the island whale in the boundless sea, following the team from the Azure Federation to the Radiance Federation. Lin had a leisurely life on the island whale's back. Other than increasing his strength, he was also looking forward to the next Celestial Body Conference. Unlike Lin's leisurely life, the one who changed the most was definitely Trey. Due to Lin Yuan, Trey had changed from a youth from a small tribe to a young man in these 7 days. He had become a Class 1 creation master recognized by the Hammer Kingdom. Because of this, his tribe, the Iron Hoof tribe, had become a 1-star tribe. Trey had become a Class 1 creation master at such a young age, and it had caused quite a commotion in the Hammer Monarch court. In order to show how much they valued Tally, the Hammer Kingdom sent a powerful royal court warrior to be responsible for his safety. When the Class 2 tribe, the Black Copper tribe, found out that Trey had become a Class 1 creation master and was valued by the Imperial Court, the Black Copper tribe was shocked. The Black Copper tribe changed their attitude and took the initiative to befriend Trey. He also promised that he was willing to work with the Iron Hoof tribe to develop high-grade energy ores and accompanying ores of gold-grade spirit materials, frost silver, just to form an alliance with the Iron Hoof tribe. The development of these events deeply shocked Trey. This made Trey even more aware of how much he had benefited from the Celestial Council. Because of this, Trey did not lose his direction at a young age. Trey firmly convinced his grandfather, grandmother, father, mother, and brother. He was prepared to move the Iron Hoof tribe toward the Divine Wood Federation's border according to Lin Yuan's request. Trey's choice was equivalent to giving up the high-grade energy ores and accompanying ores of gold-grade spirit materials, frost silver. The Iron Hoof tribe, which had never seen such wealth, was naturally unwilling to give it up. In the end, Trey moved to teach once every 7 days. His master, who had taught him to become a Class 1 creation master, finally convinced his family. A few days ago, the Iron Hoof tribe had embarked on a journey toward the Iron Hoof Federation's border. Zoe Irin was currently hunched in an alley in the Divine Wood Federation's Oak City. As a refugee, Zoe Irin had to be careful even when breathing in a place like the Divine Wood Federation, where life was worthless. During the last Celestial Council, Lin Yuan had treated Zoe Irin's injuries. However, Zoe Irin now had a large number of new injuries. In order to survive, Zoe Irin could not care less about her identity as a Gloom envoy and had to rummage through the garbage every day. The setback in reality made Zoe Irin even more determined to survive. The man's voice in the stars kept echoing in Zoe Irin's mind. Only by surviving will there be hope. Even if the price of this hope was being controlled and losing her freedom. Of course, Zoe Irin had not been completely fruitless during these few days of rummaging through the garbage for a living. Zoe Irin had found a mobile phone with a broken screen that could make blind calls. At the last Celestial Council, Zoe Irin still remembered that the body intertwined with countless laws and willpower had given instructions to the body formed by willpower beside her. It was to migrate from the Iron Hoof Federation to the edge of the Divine Wood Federation. This meant that the figure was likely to be at the edge of the Divine Wood Federation. After nearly a month of investigation, Zoe Irin knew that Oak City, where she was the closest big city to the Iron Hoof Federation. Therefore, Zoe Irin cherished the mobile phone she had picked up. Zoe Irin wanted to try and see if she could ask for the figure's mobile phone number at the Celestial Council. Then she would get in touch with the figure through this mobile phone that could only make blind calls. Otherwise, he would not be so lucky when his soul was damaged and the sacred source life form was on the brink of death. He was always able to survive after being beaten up. Zoe Irin's skinny body was curled up in the alley like an insecure kitten. In this kind of life, Zol's senses were very light. Sue Irin starved for 2 days so that she wouldn't wake up in the middle of a deep sleep. He exchanged the food he picked up from a kind-looking vagrant for a glass of strong alcohol that even vagrants despised. Sue Irin, who had never drunk alcohol, actually started snoring in her sleep after downing a glass of strong alcohol. Sue Irin probably wouldn't wake up for at least half a day. Genius was a housekeeping beast, so it was naturally familiar with the wake-up service. Once it was 1 o'clock, Genius used its 8 long tails to tickle Lin Yuan's neck. Lin Yuan was already very ticklish, and with Genius's waving tail, he felt extremely itchy. Lin Yuan quickly sobered up with laughter. Chapter 12:25. After Lin Yuan woke up, he hugged Genius, which was tickling him, and gave it a fierce stroke. It lowered its head and meowed comfortably after being stroked by Genius. Lin Yuan then carried Genius to the water rhinoceros leather sofa and asked it, "Smart, are you planning to stay in the manor or return to the Spirit Lock spatial zone?" When Genius heard Lin Yuan's question, it quickly answered. "Lin Yuan, Genius wants to return to the Spirit Lock spatial zone and use the spirit fluid to split the soldier ration radish. Then take the army's rations radishes that have been split and plant them in the swamp world." As it spoke, Genius wagged its tail, its eyes sparkling. Upon seeing Genius' cheerful expression, Lin Yuan was rather curious. Hence, he patted Genius's head and asked, "Smart, what are you thinking about? Why are you so happy?" Genius let out a meow and said, "Lin Yuan, there will be 15 soldier grain radishes after splitting. The swamp world's environment is very suitable for the growth of the soldier radishes. Recently, the wind speed rapid antelope has not had any time to rest because of the crazy growth of the soldier radishes. Moreover, I don't think there's any point in keeping so many army rations radish branches. Why don't we bury all the branches of the army grain radish in the swamp world? The branches of the army grain radish would quickly turn into nutrient-rich humus in the presence of the fungi in the swamp world. There is an academic report about a Class 4 creation master leading a few pinnacle Class 3 creation masters to conduct an experiment on the soil mixed with various kinds of swamp soil. It has been discovered that there is a high possibility that a variety of swamp soils will fuse with an excess supply of humus, combining their advantages to form a compound type of swamp soil. With the speed at which the 15 army grain radishes are growing branches, I want to see if I can turn the entire swamp world's territory into a compound swamp soil." Upon hearing Genius' words, Lin Yuan couldn't help but raise his brows. Genius was now acting like a little scientist. Its mind was filled with ideas on how to help it develop its territory. It was indeed useless for Lin Yuan to store a large number of the soldier ravenous vine's branches. Although the branches of the army grain radish were very nutritious, and a human only needed to eat one leaf to fill their stomachs. However, the army grain radish's strength did not lie in its nutritional value, but in its rapid growth rate. In terms of nutrient content, many production-type phase fruits, stems, and leaves were much more nutritious than the soldier grain radish. However, these production-type phase definitely did not have the ability to grow 10,000 meters per day like the soldier's grain radish. When the army grain radish's rank increased, each army grain radish's existence was equivalent to a powerful food production base. With a production base like the military radish, which had a shocking output, Lin Yuan did not need to put in effort to store food. The army grain radish branches and leaves that he had previously collected in the swamp world, if he could really evolve the entire land of his territory into compound swamp soil. As more and more swamp soil was buried in his territory, the compound swamp soil formed in his territory would become stronger and stronger. At that time, not only would Endless Summer's sacred source life form Arakawa orchid sprout, grow faster, but it would also grow faster. At the same time, his territory in the swamp world would also become a paradise for plant phase. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw a person walk in from the mansion's entrance. This person's face was filled with joy. It was Ji Feng. Before Lin Yuan could say anything, Ji Feng had already spoken to him first. "Young master, my Fey Advance Order Water Lotus has given me instructions based on the exclusive skill that it obtained when it became a myth breed." Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan immediately became interested. He had seen with his own eyes how magical Ji Feng's Karma Gladiolus and Command Water Lotus were. Among them, Lin Yuan valued Ji Feng's Foretelling Water Lotus the most. It had the ability to foretell misfortune to the people he came into contact with every once in a while. The smile on Ji Feng's face was so bright that the water lily's prediction was self-evident. "Ji Feng, tell me, what good news did you foresee?" Ji Feng said hurriedly. "Young master, this good thing is a bit special because this good thing isn't just for one person. When I first came to the manor, the foreordaining water lily had been making frequent predictions. In the beginning, I ordered the water lily to predict that an auspicious sign would appear on when you. Then it was Lu Jia listened, the mother of Bloodbath, Endless Summer, Zhou Luo, Hu Quan, and today it's you. The frequent occurrence of auspicious signs made me feel that things were a little strange, so I used the foreordaining water lily's testimony. Through repeated probing, I can confirm that everyone's auspicious signs are related to each other. To be able to make everyone's auspicious signs be related, I think the most likely reason is that this auspicious sign is aimed at the entire manor. Everyone will return to the manor to live, so it's tainted with the auspicious signs. With this idea in mind, I used my testimony to test it again. After saying this idea, I didn't receive a backlash from the Heaven Secrets, which means that my idea is right. Then I continued to use my testimony to test the time. I can confirm that this auspicious sign for everyone in the manor will arrive within 2 days. Ji Feng's words were clearly a happy event, but Lin Yuan's brows twitched wildly. Lin Yuan remembered that when he had checked the foreordaining water lily's true data, he would receive a backlash from the Heaven Secrets when the prediction failed and his soul would be severely injured. Ji Feng knew this, but he still repeatedly tested it. It was said that curiosity killed the cat. Could Ji Feng be a cat? Ji Feng's behavior was equivalent to grabbing a wire and pretending to be a will-o'-the-wisp youth. Lin Yuan felt that no matter what, he should remind Ji Feng for his safety. "Ji Feng, it's better to use your testimony less. It's not a good feeling to have your soul injured." Ji Feng chuckled when he heard Lin Yuan's words. Even if the prediction of bad luck fails, the backlash from the Heaven Secrets won't cause serious injuries to the soul. "Young master, you forgot that my foreordaining water lily can heal soul injuries. I just need to use the foreordaining water lily to heal the damaged soul." Ji Feng had suffered 10 years of soul torture, and the pain of the soul was already traumatized. Under normal circumstances, Ji Feng naturally would not put himself in danger to explore an illusory auspicious sign. Recently, Endless Summer had brought Listen and Zhou Luo to Indigo Azure City to gather the Zheng family's resources. Ji Feng replaced Endless Summer to oversee the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. After revealing its claws in Sky City, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had not encountered any trouble. Ji Feng had been exceptionally idle in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce for the past few days. However, since Ji Feng had followed Lin Yuan and received his life-saving grace, Ji Feng naturally was not willing to be a useless person. Therefore Ji Feng wanted to do as much as he could. Even if this matter might hurt his soul, Ji Feng did not hesitate. 166 Reading Network. Chapter 1226. This auspicious omen appeared on Lin Yuan and everyone in the return from faraway mansion. 10 years ago Ji Feng, who had watched his family die tragically in front of him, was already alone when he met Lin Yuan. After interacting with the people of the return from faraway manor, Ji Feng subconsciously treated the return from faraway manor as his own home. Upon hearing Ji Feng's words, Lin Yuan took a deep look at Ji Feng and did not say anything else. Ji Feng's simple words had conveyed too much information to Lin Yuan. Since Ji Feng was willing to express his affection despite the damage to his soul, Lin Yuan naturally would not trample on this affection. Lin Yuan firmly remembered this affection in his heart. Moreover, Ji Feng had been the young family head of the Whale Ocean Trade's Ocean Sky lineage, so he would certainly have a sense of propriety when doing things. According to Ji Feng, there would be an auspicious omen for the entire mansion in these 2 days. Lin Yuan intended to be on full alert from now on. On one hand, it was to welcome the auspicious omen. On the other hand, it was to not let this auspicious omen, which should have appeared in the mansion, slip away. After reporting the situation to Lin Yuan, Ji Feng immediately returned to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. As the strongest expert in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, Ji Feng could not leave the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce for too long. After putting Genius into the Spirit Lock spatial zone and letting it distribute the soldiers' rations, Lin Yuan went to the 3rd floor and knocked on Wen Yu's door. Wen Yu's sleep was very light, and Lin Yuan only knocked twice before she woke up from her deep sleep. After opening the door, Lin Yuan found Wen Yu with a head of fluffy and messy ahogue. However, her eyes were abnormally awake at this moment. When she saw Lin Yuan, she opened the door and said to him, "Young master, come in and wait for me for a while. Young master. I'll go wash my face and tidy up before carrying out the ritual and convening the Celestial Council." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan naturally followed Wen Yu into the room. The construction of the return from faraway mansion had been completed for a long time. Wen Yu usually went to Lin Yuan's room to give him clothes and discuss the development of Sky City with him. However, unlike Wen Yu, who often went to Lin Yuan's room, Lin Yuan had never been to Wen Yu's room. Or rather, this was the first time Lin Yuan had been to a girl's bedroom other than Chu Si's. After Lin Yuan sat on the chair in Wen Yu's room, Wen Yu went into the bathroom to take care of herself. He listened to the sound of flowing water while sizing up the furnishings in her room. Lin Yuan realized that the layout of her room was completely different from her clothing design style. Wen Yu's Spirit Chi clothing was often very elegant and luxurious. In terms of tailoring, they had always used the most exquisite palace style. Such a design style made Lin Yuan's daily Spirit Chi clothes look simple, but the embroidery patterns and accessories all revealed a sense of nobility. However, Wen Yu's room was minimalist. Apart from a bed, 2 chairs and a large table, there was basically no other furnishings. In Lin Yuan's room, there were even some sculptures made of completely jade-like wood by Hu Quan. From the moment he entered the room, Lin Yuan could faintly smell a faint fragrance. This fragrance was different from the smell of flowers and plants. It had a distinct characteristic and it smelled very gentle. If not for the fact that the impurities in his body had been completely cleansed and his sense of smell had reached the limits of humans, he would not have been able to smell it. This faint fragrance was easily overlooked by Lin Yuan. Just as Lin Yuan finished sizing up the room and was about to trace the source of this fragrance, Wen Yu had already walked out of the bathroom. Wen Yu walked out of the bathroom with a frown on her face. She was obviously thinking about a thorny problem. Wen Yu took 2 steps forward and walked to Lin Yuan's side. "Young master, do you have any plans for the Celestial Body Conference?" Based on her question, Lin Yuan knew that she was thinking about recruiting Su Yiren. Lin Yuan didn't find this strange. Wen Yu had investigated Su Yiren's background during the Celestial Body Conference, so she naturally knew Su Yiren's value. However, he felt that she was a little too worried. Compared to thinking about how to recruit Su Yiren, after 7 days of settling down, Zhou Yiren, who had experienced the hardships of the world, was now racking her brains to figure out how to join the Celestial Body Council. After pondering for a moment, Lin Yuan expressed his opinion on recruiting Su Yiren. "Not only do we not need to make any plans for the Sui Yiren, but we also don't need to plan ahead. If Zoel wants to join the Celestial Council, we need to set 3 rules for her. Su Yiren is now in the Divine Wood Federation. I'll meet her sooner or later when I'm training there. After meeting up with Su Yiren, healing her soul injuries and the sacred source life form that's on the verge of death is a must. Otherwise, Su Yiren, who can't even summon a fae, is useless to us. It's just that Su Yiren's mind is now full of revenge. Through this Celestial Body Council, we need to change her mind. The Celestial Council needs companions who cooperate with each other and develop together, not a determined avenger. Upon hearing that, Wen Yu immediately understood what Lin Yuan meant and knew his plan for Su Yiren. It seemed that Lin Yuan was determined to win Su Yiren. At the same time, Lin Yuan's words also let Wen Yu walk out of the misunderstanding she had fallen into. After knowing Su Yiren's identity as a Dark Envoy, Wen Yu valued Su Yiren very much. In fact, rather than saying that Wen Yu valued Su Yiren's ability, it was better to say that she valued Su Yiren's identity more. Now, Lin Yuan's words made Wen Yu realize that Su Yiren's ability as a Dark Envoy was far more important than her identity as a Dark Envoy. What Lin Yuan valued was Su Yiren's ability. This was also why Lin Yuan wanted to set 3 rules for Su Yiren. From this point, Wen Yu could see that Lin Yuan's vision was far superior to hers. Wen Yu enjoyed the feeling of constantly improving by Lin Yuan's side. Wen Yu and Lin Yuan went to the training room and used the ritual to activate the sacred source life form, the Celestial Council. A grand event in the stars finally began again. When Lin Yuan and Wen Yu sat on the Leo and Libra thrones again, Lin Yuan found that 4 figures had appeared neatly in the northern and southern celestial seats. Among them, Yin Lin sat on the Andromeda throne, Bei Su sat on the Immortal throne, Tally sat on the Leo throne, and Su Yiren stood in front of the Corona Australis throne. During the previous Celestial Council, Tally had signed a contract with the Leo throne without hesitation. He had become an official member of the Celestial Council. However, because of hesitation and distrust of the Celestial Council, Su Yiren did not sign a contract with the Corona Australis throne. When Su Yiren saw Lin Yuan and Wen Yu, she immediately prepared to sign a contract with the Corona Australis throne like Tally had done with the Leo throne. End of this chapter. Chapter 12:27. But just as Su Yiren extended her hand towards the Corona Australis throne, she heard the lady sitting on the Libra throne speak calmly. Wait, if you want to join the Celestial Council, you have to prove your worth first. Wen Yu's words stunned Su Yiren. In Zol's memories, Trey was not required to prove his worth when he signed the contract with the Leo Minor. This made Su Yiren feel like she was being treated differently. Although Zhou Yiren's life in the Divine Wood Federation was worse than a dog's, she was still in the form of a soul consciousness in a dream. Here, Su Yiren still had the pride of a Dark Envoy. If she had been treated this differently the last time, Zoel would have left the Celestial Council without hesitation. However, ever since the Celestial Assembly had ended, he had used the Astral Throne's function to transfer the Jasmine Lily's vitality to Su Yiren and heal her injuries. This made Zoel realize just how powerful the Celestial Council was. This also made Zhou Yiren understand that even if she was in the Divine Wood Federation, the Celestial Council would still help her. In addition, he had said that as long as she was alive, there would be hope. This made Su Yiren train herself for 7 days. As a result, Su Yiren could not wait to sign a contract with the Corona Australis throne behind her the moment she entered the Celestial Council. Su'ul, who had long decided to join the Celestial Council, was naturally unwilling to give up this opportunity after being treated unfairly. Su Yiren asked, looking straight at Wen Yu. How do I prove my worth? While Su Yiren and Wen Yu were conversing, he once again checked Su Yiren's memories. He now knew how Su Yiren had survived the past 7 days. When Lin Yuan saw that Su Yiren was about to sign a contract with Corona South, he had been prepared to stop her. In the end, Wen Yu got in front of him and stopped Su Yiren. Since Wen Yu had taken the lead, he planned to hand Su Yiren over to her. He wanted to see what Wen Yu would say and do. Seeing that Su Yiren was asking her a question, Wen Yu answered directly. Proving a person's worth is not based on what they have, but what they can do. Can you cooperate with the Celestial Council without hiding anything? Su Yiren fell silent. After a brief silence, Su Yiren did not directly answer Wen Yu. Instead, he changed the topic and pointed at Tally, Yin Lin, and Bei Su. Can they guarantee that they won't cooperate with the Celestial Council? How would others know what a person is thinking? This kind of promise is like child's play to me. Now I'll answer you yes, do you believe me? Su Yiren had just finished her sentence when Yin Lin, who was not far away, interrupted her coldly. Don't forget why you joined the Celestial Council. What kind of oath did you make before entering the Celestial Council? Tian Qing is already giving you face by using the word cooperation. After the Celestial Council achieves your wish, you should do everything you can for the Celestial Council. When Yin Lin rebuked Zhou Yiren, Bei Su and Tally also frowned at her. Zhou Yiren could clearly feel Yin Lin, Tally and Bei Su's disgust for her. Yin Lin's words brought Su Yiren to her senses. This was because Zoel, who had once again entered the Celestial Council, was thinking about how to survive and achieve her own goals. Indeed, she had forgotten how she entered the Celestial Council last time. At that moment, Yin Lin heard the woman sitting on the throne of Libra speak in a calm tone. Right now, you're thinking about how to get more rewards from the Celestial Council. When your wings grow, you want to return to the Dark Continent and use your identity as a Dark Envoy to get a response from the members of the 7 Dark States in the central plains of the Dark Continent. Am I right? Wen Yu's words made Zhou Yiren's eyes widen. Because Wen Yu was talking about Zhou Yiren's current thoughts. It could be said that Wen Yu had completely seen through Zhou Yiren's thoughts. Previously, Zhou Yiren had been wondering how the two people sitting on the throne knew so much about her. Now, it seemed that there was something strange about this gathering. Or, the woman sitting on the throne of Libra had the ability to see through her heart. While Zhou Yiren was thinking, Wen Yu continued. I've always thought that people who can become Dark Envoys are not people who can't see the situation clearly. If you want to take revenge, the most basic thing is to have the strength to defeat 7th Page War. If you don't have the strength of 7th Page War, you'll only get the people close to you killed if you act rashly. You should know this very well. Now, I'll give you one last chance. Let me know what you can do for the Celestial Council. Otherwise, you can continue to pick up the trash in the Divine Wood Federation as a scavenger to eat and barely survive. Oak City is a huge city in the Divine Wood Federation with a 4-star family, many 3-star families, and dozens of 2-star families. In a place like this where nobles are everywhere, the death of a refugee won't cause any ripples. At that time, no one will know that the dignified Dark Envoy was buried in a corner of an alley in the Divine Wood Federation's Oak City like an ant. You know that I'm not saying this to scare you, and don't think that the contract with the Celestial Council is that simple. Signing a contract with the Celestial Council means that you're destined to fulfill the promise you made when you entered the Celestial Council. Otherwise, you'll pay far more than you get. Wen Yu's every word was like a hammer hammering down on Su Yiren's heart. Every word from Wen Yu was about the suffering that Zhou Yiren was currently experiencing. Wen Yu's omniscience, as if she could see through people's hearts, made Zhou Yiren feel a sense of fear. In the end, Zhou Yiren gritted her teeth and said, I can do many things. I can do a lot of things. Even if you give me a federation, I can help you run it in an orderly manner. As for the other things you want me to do, at the very least, you have to recover from my injuries. In addition, my Sacred Source Lifeform is a little special. My Sacred Source Lifeform's abilities are bound to each of my phase. If I don't recover from my near-death state, my Sacred Source Lifeform will not be able to summon them. Even if I recover from my soul injuries, I won't be able to summon them. Zhou Yiren's words were arrogant, but when you knew that Zhou Yiren was not lying. There were a total of 7 federations in the Dark Continent. One of the tests for Zhou Yiren to become a Dark Envoy was to rule a federation for a year. From there, she would prove her ability in strategy and the overall situation. End of this chapter. Chapter 12:28. Lin Yuan took over from Wen Yu's words and said to Su Yiren, if you choose to become a member of the Celestial Council, the Celestial Council will naturally not let you down. Your soul injury can be easily healed. You don't have to worry about that. What we should be discussing now is how to cure your Sacred Source Lifeform. Su Yiren's eyes lit up. From Lin Yuan's words, Su Yiren knew that the Celestial Council had the ability to heal her soul. He also wanted to heal his Sacred Source Lifeform, which was in a desperate state. In truth, Su Yiren was not very clear about the Absolute Love Poppy's injuries. After all, 7th Page War had crushed the flowers and stems of the Absolute Love Poppy into flower mud. Then the Absolute Love Poppy fell into a deep slumber in the depths of Zol's soul. If he wanted to communicate with the Sacred Source Lifeform and investigate its condition, he would need to use his soul power. With her soul injured, Zhou Yiren had no way of checking on the Absolute Love Poppy's condition. But Su Yiren was certain that Absolute Love Poppy was still alive. In fact, under normal circumstances, as long as a plant's roots were still there, it would grow rapidly. It should be able to absorb nutrients to recover. It was just that the current absolute love poppy was too weak. In a state of near death, the absolute love poppy did not dare to casually absorb the nutrients. This was because once the absolute love opium poppy started to absorb the nutrients, the stump would come out of its dormant state. After coming out of its dormant state, the absolute love poppy would rapidly lose its life force from the broken stem. Once the life force generated from the absorbed nutrients did not reach the level of dissipation, the absolute love poppy would completely die. Subconsciously, Zoe did not want her hopeless love poppy, who was on the brink of death, to take any risks. So, Su Irin demanded an exorbitant price. It's very difficult to cure my absolute love poppy. I can only think of two ways. The first is to plant my absolute love poppy on top of the top-grade living life soil. The second is to burn my absolute love poppy with life-extinguishing flames. Other methods might have the effect of recovery, but only these two methods are the safest. Otherwise, if I don't do it properly, my absolute love poppy might very well die. I don't want absolute love poppy to take the risk. When he heard Su Irin mention the top-notch swamp soil, eternal life soil, he frowned. There were only so many Class 5 swamp dimensional rifts in the Radiance continent. The number of Class 5 swamp dimensional rifts that produced top-notch swamp soil was even more so. The Moon Empress had mentioned to him that there was a top-notch swamp soil master in the Radiance Federation. There was no everlasting soil in it at all. In other words, it was impossible to find the top-notch marsh soil eternal life soil in the Radiance Federation. He now had a territory in the swamp world, and it was very convenient for him to find live soil. However, in the vast swamp world, trying to find a specific kind of swamp soil was like looking for a needle in a haystack. There were often powerful dimensional creatures guarding the vicinity of the top-grade swamp. Given Lin Yuan's current strength, he might not be able to provoke the dimensional life forms guarding the top-notch swamp. When Su Irin mentioned the life form Still Flame, Lin Yuan's brows immediately relaxed. If Su Irin needed the life form Still Flame, it would save him the trouble. There was a ready-made life form Still Flame in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. During this time, the Twin Red Pagoda had been consuming the pure Spirit Chi and Fire-type Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. A large amount of pure Spirit Chi and Fire-type Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls had allowed the life form Still Flame to grow rapidly. It was already in a semi-mature state. Although the life form Still Flame produced by the Twin Red Pagoda was far less mature than the one that Endless Summer had devoured, it should be more than enough. However, it should be more than enough to produce plant-type sacred source life forms through burning. Since the absolute love poppy only needed to be burned with the life form Still Flame instead of consuming the life form Still Flame, Lin Yuan naturally had nothing to be stingy about. After speaking, Su Irin immediately felt that she had said something wrong. The Dark Seven States had once obtained a piece of top-notch marsh soil eternal life soil. This piece of top-notch marsh soil eternal life soil was considered a precious treasure in the entire Dark Seven States. This piece of top-notch marsh soil eternal life soil was considered a precious treasure in the entire Dark Seven States. Su Irin had only heard of the life form Still Flame's effects and had never seen it before. Su Irin felt that her request was a little too much. She was no longer in the Dark Seven States and the Dark Continent had fallen. She should no longer use the vision of a Dark Envoy to communicate with others. However, Su Irin did not expect that as soon as she made her request. The man on the Leo throne said naturally, "In that case, sign a contract with the Corona Australis. In that case, sign a contract with the Corona Australis throne. I will go and heal your sacred source life form, the Absolute Love Poppy." Lin Yuan's words made Su Irin pleasantly surprised. At the same time, she was surprised by the resources Lin Yuan had. After receiving Lin Yuan's guarantee, Su Irin hurriedly signed a contract with the Corona Australis throne. In Su Irin's opinion, the more resources Lin Yuan had, the better it would be for her in the future. Just as Su Irin signed the contract with the Corona Australis throne, the Corona Australis nebula above her head shone brightly. Su Irin suddenly remembered the cell phone she had found while rummaging through the trash. Su Irin was about to ask for Lin Yuan's phone number when he gave her a string of phone numbers. "Call this number in 5 days. This number will make the next arrangements for you." Lin Yuan gave Su Irin the 2 cell phone numbers he had selected from the 5 Dry Cliff Bandits. The Dry Cliff Bandits were small fries in the Divine Wood Federation and did not have complicated interpersonal relationships. Now that the Dry Cliff Bandits had been annihilated, no one would be able to call these 2 numbers anymore. Su Irin had wanted to ask for Lin Yuan's phone number, but the words were already on the tip of her tongue. Su Yiren's pupils shrank when she saw Lin Yuan's ability to predict the future. As someone in a superior position, Su Yiren was well aware of how terrifying a person's thoughts could be. Lin Yuan and Wen Yu's omniscience had left a deep imprint in Su Yiren's heart. It was to let Su Yiren know that she could never lie to Lin Yuan in the future. Even if she lied, the other party would already know everything before she spoke. If Lin Yuan knew what Su Yiren was thinking now, he would definitely praise himself for giving out the phone number. In fact, the moment Su Yiren signed the contract with the Corona Australia's throne, Lin Yuan and Wen Yu had already lost the ability to perceive Su Yiren's memories. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.